Right. Hold on, I'm going to put a bookmark into where we need to get up to. So we're currently on page... So we're currently on page 98. Oh, sorry, 97. And, we'll be finishing at 309. But then the one afterwards is fucking tiny. Jesus. There we go. Now I know where I'm going. This book is a big boy. It is a big boy. Right, I will put you there. That's going to be so much easier. Alright. Third iteration. Details emerge more clearly as the fractal curve is redrawn. Again, Ian Malcolm. Jurassic Park. They moved into a green tunnel of overarching palms leading towards the main visitor building. Everywhere extensive and elaborate planting emphasized the feeling that they were entering a new world, a prehistoric tropical world, and leaving the normal world behind. Ellie said to Grant, "They look pretty good." "Yes," Grant said. "I want to see them up close. I want to lift up their toe pads and inspect their claws and feel their skin and open their jaws and have a look at their teeth. Until then, I don't know for sure. But yes, they look good." "I suppose it changes your field a bit," Malcolm said. Grant shook his head. "It changes everything," he said. For 150 years, ever since the discovery of gigantic animal bones in Europe, the study of dinosaurs has been an exercise in scientific deduction. Paleontology was essentially detective work, searching for clues in fossil bones and the trackways along vanquished giants. The best paleontologists were the ones who could make the most clever deductions. And all of the great disputes of paleontology were carried out in fashion, including the bitter debate, in which Grant was a key figure, about whether dinosaurs were warm-blooded. Scientists have always classified dinosaurs as reptiles, cold-blooded creatures, drawing the heat they needed from life from the environment. A mammal could metabolize food to produce bodily warmth, but a reptile could not. Eventually, a handful of researchers, led chiefly by John Ostrom and Robert Bakker at Yale, began to suspect that the concept of sluggish, cold-blooded dinosaurs was inadequate to explain the fossil records. In classic deductive fashion, they drew conclusions from several lines of evidence. First was posture. Lizards and reptiles were bent-legged sprawlers, hugging the ground for warmth. Lizards didn't have the energy to stand on their hind legs for more than a few seconds, but the dinosaurs stood on straight legs, and many walk erect on their hind legs. Among living animals, erect posture occurred in only warm-blooded mammals and birds. Thus, dinosaurs' posture suggested warm-bloodedness. Next, they studied metabolism. Close enough. Calculating the pressure necessary to push blood up the 18-foot-long neck of a brachiosaur, and concluding that it could only be accomplished by 4-chambered hot-blooded heart. They studied trackways, fossil footprints left in mud, and concluded the dinosaur ran as fast as man. Such activity implied warm-blooded. They found dinosaur remains above the Arctic Circle, in a frigid environment unimaginable for any reptile. And the new studies of group behavior, based largely on Grant's own work, suggested the dinosaurs had a complex social life and reared their young, as reptiles did not. Turtles abandoned their eggs, but dinosaurs probably did not. The warm-blooded controversy has raged for 15 years, before a new perception of dinosaurs as quick-moving, active animals was accepted, but not without lasting animosities. At conventions, there were still colleagues who did not speak to one another. But now, if dinosaurs could be cloned, why, Grant's field of study was going to change instantly. The paleontology study of dinosaurs was finished. The whole enterprise. The museum halls was their giant skeletons and flocks of echoing school children. The universities' laboratories with their bone trays. The research papers, the journals, all of it was going to end. "You don't seem upset," Malcolm said. Grant shook his head. "It's been discussed in the field. Many people imagined it was coming, but not so soon." "Story of our species," Malcolm said, laughing. "Everybody knows it's coming, but not so soon." As they walked down the path, they could no longer see the dinosaurs, but they could hear them trumpeting softly in the distance. Grant said, "My only question is, where did they get the DNA?" Grant was aware of serious speculation in laboratories Berkeley, yeah, Tokyo, and London, then it might eventually be possible to clone an extinct animal such as a dinosaur. If you could get some dinosaur DNA to work with, the problem was that all known dinosaurs were fossils, and the fossilization destroyed most DNA, replacing it with inorganic material. Of course, if a dinosaur was frozen, or preserved in a peat bog, or mummified in desert environment, then its DNA might be recoverable. But nobody has ever found a frozen or mummified dinosaur, so cloning was therefore impossible. There was nothing to clone from. All the modern genetic technology was useless. It was like having Xerox? Yeah, I think I'm guessing that's an American thing. Copier, but nothing to copy it with. Ellie said, "You can't reproduce a real dinosaur because you can't get real dinosaur DNA. Unless there's a way we haven't thought of," Grant said. "Like what?" she said. "I don't know," Grant said. Beyond a fence, they came into the swimming pool, which spilled over into a series of waterfalls and smaller rock pools. The area was planted with huge ferns. "Isn't this extraordinary?" Outrageous said. "Especially on a misty day, those plants really contribute to the prehistoric atmosphere. These are authentic Jurassic ferns, of course." Ellie paused to look more closely at the ferns. Yes, it was just as he said. Fuck off. Serena veriformans? Sure. A plant found abundantly in fossils more than 200 million years ago, now common only in the wetlands of Brazil and Colombia. But whoever decided to place this particular fern at the poolside obviously didn't know that the spores of Veriformis contained a deadly beta-carboline alkaloid. Even touching the attractive greens fronds could make you sick, and if you were a child to take a mouthful, you would almost certainly die. The toxin was 50 times more poisonous than Olinda, yeah, sure. People were so naive about plants, Eddie thought. They just chose plants for appearance, and they would choose a picture for a wall. It never occurred to them the plants were actually living things, busily performing all the living functions of respiration, ingestion, excretion, reproduction, and defense. But Ellie knew that in the Earth's history, plants had evolved as competitively as animals, and in some ways more fiercely. The poison in Serena veriformans was a minor example of the elaborate chemical arsenal of weapons that plants had evolved. There were terpenes, which plants spread to poison the soil around them and inhibit competitors. Alkaloids, which made them unpalatable to insects and predators and children, and pheromones used for communication. When a Douglas fir tree was attacked by beetles, it produced an anti-pheidon chemical, and so did the other Douglas fir in distant parts of the forest. It happened in response to a warning aliochemical secreted by the trees that were under attack. People who imagined the life on Earth consisted of animals moving against a green background seriously misunderstood what they were seeing. The green background was busily alive. Plants grew, moved, twisted, and turned, fighting for the sun, and they interacted continuously with animals, discussing some with bark, discouraging some with bark, thorns, poisoning others, and feeding still others to the advance of their own reproduction, to spread their pollen and seeds. It was a complex dynamic process, which she never ceased to find fascinating, and which she knew most people simply didn't understand. But if planting deadly ferns at poolside was an indication, then it was clear that the designers of Jurassic Park had not been careful as they should have been. "Isn't it just wonderful?" Ed Regis was saying. "If you look up ahead, you'll see our safari lodge." Ellie saw a dramatic low building with a series of glass pyramids of the roof. "That's where you'll be staying here in Jurassic Park." Grant's suite was done in beige tones, the rattan furniture and green jungle print motifs. The room wasn't quite finished. There were stacks of lumber in the closet and pieces of electrical conduit on the floor. There was a television set in the corner with a card on top. Channel 1. Fucking no. What the fuck is that? That's what Google's for. What fucking dinosaur is that? I say dinosaur, I mean species. Oh, I can't even actually reach my keyboard. What the? Wow, that did not spell the way I wanted it to. Yeah. Oh, little fucking... Oh, Oh, the little fucking, little fuckers. Little fuckers. These little fuckers. Little baby fuckers. Boy. That's what they are. That makes sense. Little fuckers. Cool. Channel 3, Triceratops territory. Channel 4, Sauropod Swamp. Channel 5, Carnivore Country. Channel 6, Stegosaurus South. Channel 7, Velociraptor Valley. Channel 8, Pterosaur Peak. Which is funny because we don't use the P's. He found the names irritatingly cute. Grant turned on the television but only got static. He shut it off and went to his bedroom, tossed his suitcase on the bed. Directly over the bed was a large pyramidal, yeah, that does sound right, skylight. It created a tented feeling, like sleeping under the stars. Unfortunately, the glass had to be protected by heavy bars, so the striped shadows fell across the bed. Actually, she probably will help us later. Grant paused. He had seen the plans for the lodge, and he didn't remember bars on the skylight. In fact, those bars appeared to be a rather crude addition. A black steel frame had been constructed outside the glass walls, and the bar welded to the frame. Puzzled, Grant moved from the bedroom to the living room. His window looked out to the swimming pool. By the way, those ferns are poison, Ellie said, walking into his room. But did you notice anything about the rooms, Alan? They changed the plans. I think so, yes. She moved around the room. The windows are small, she said, and the glass is tempered, set in a steel frame, and the doors are steel clad. That shouldn't be necessary. Did you see the fences when we came in? Grant nodded. The entire lodge was enclosed within a fence, with bars of thick inch-thick steel. The fence was gracefully landscaped and painted flat black to resemble wrought iron, but no cosmetic effect could disguise the thickness of the metal, or its 12-foot height. I don't think the fences were in the plans either, Ellie said. It looks to me like they've turned this place into a fortress. Grant looked at his watch. We'll be sure to ask, he said. The tour starts in 20 minutes. When dinosaurs ruled the earth. They met in the visitor building, 2 stories high and all glass with exposed black anodized grinders and supports. Grant found it determinedly high-tech. There was a small auditorium dominated by a robot Tyrannosaurus Rex, posed menacingly by the entrance to an exhibit area labelled When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth. Farther on were other displays. What is a dinosaur? And the Mesozoic world. But the exhibits weren't completed. There were wires and cables all over the floor. Gennaro climbed up on the stage and talked to Ellie, Grant, and Malcolm, his voice echoing slightly into the room. Hammer sat in the back, his hands folded across his chest. We're about to tour the facilities, Gennaro said. I'm sure Mr. Hammond and his staff will show everything in the best light. Before we go, I wanted to review why we are here and what I need to decide before we leave. Basically, as you all realise by now, this is an island in which genetically engineered dinosaurs have been allowed to move into a natural park-like setting, forming a tourist attraction. The attraction isn't open to tourists yet, but it will be in a year. Now, my question for you is a simple one. Is the island safe? Is it safe for visitors, and is it safely containing the dinosaurs? Gennaro turned down the room lights. There are 2 pieces of evidence which we have to deal with. First of all, there is Dr. Grant's identification of a previously unknown dinosaur on the Costa Rican mainland. This dinosaur is known only for a partial fragment. It was found July of this year, after it supposedly bit an American girl on the beach. Dr. Grant can tell you more later. I've asked for the original fragment, which is in a lab in New York, to be flown here so we can inspect it directly. Meanwhile, there is a second piece of evidence. Costa Rica has an excellent medical service and it tracks all kinds of data. Beginning in March, there were reports of lizard biting infants in their crib. And also, I might add, biting old people who were sleeping soundly. These lizard bites were sporadically reported in coastal villages from Ismaloya and Punta Arenas. After March, lizard bites were no longer reported. However, I have this graph from the Public Health Service in San Jose of infant mortality in the towns of the West Coast earlier this year. There's a whole fucking graph. 7. 7's the highest number. 7 babies dead in June. Early June. We'll say early June. I also got the graph. Look at you. I think you'd survive it. Driving, but I'll be there for the evening event. So yeah, YouTube. Oh, I got 6 deaths in June. How did you get 6? Oh, yeah, maybe it is 6. Okay, I can't read. The numbers are so tiny on my end. I was like, yeah, definitely 7. No, 6, but there's also a whole extra dot. Oh god. Eliza, why are you sending me so many videos? I direct your attention to the 2 features of this graph. Gennaro said first, infant mortality rate is low in the months of January and February, then spikes in March, then it's low again in April, but from May onward it is high, right through July. The month the American girl was bitten. The Public Health Service feels that something is now affecting infant mortality, and it is not being reported by the workers in the coastal villages. The second feature is the puzzling bi-weekly spiking, which seems to suggest some kind of alternating phenomenon is at work. The lights came back on. All right, Gennaro said. That's the evidence I wanted to explain. Now, are there any... We can save ourselves a great deal of trouble, Malcolm said. I'll explain it for you now. You will, Gennaro said. Yes. First of all, animals have very likely gotten off the island. Oh, balls, Hammond growled from the back. And second, the graph from the Public Health Service is almost certainly unrelated to any animal that's escaped. Grant said. How do you know that? You'll notice that the graph alternates between high and low spikes, Malcolm said. That is characteristic of many complex systems. For example, water dripping from a tap. If you turn the faucet on just a little, you get a constant drip, drip, drip. If you open it more, so that there's a bit more of turbulence in the flow, then you'll get an alternating large and small drops, drip, 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 like that. You can try it yourself. Turbulence produce alternation. It's a signature, and you will get an alternating graph like this for the spread of a new illness in a community. But why do you say it isn't caused by escaped dinosaurs? Grant said. Because it's a non-linear signature, Malcolm said. You need hundreds of escaped dinosaurs to cause it, and I don't think hundreds of dinosaurs have escaped. So I conclude that some other phenomenon, such as a new variety of flu, is causing the fluctuations you see in the graph. But do you think the dinosaurs have escaped? Probably, yes. Why? Because of what you're attempting here. Look, this island is an attempt to recreate a natural environment from the past, to make an isolated world where extinct creatures roam freely, correct? Yes. But from my point of view, such an undertaking is impossible. The mathematics are so self-evident that they need to be calculated. It is rather like my asking you whether on $1 billion income you had to pay tax. You won't need to pull out your calculator to check. You know tax was owed, and similarly, I know overwhelmingly that one cannot successfully duplicate nature in this way or hope to isolate it. Why not, after all? There are zoos. Zoos don't recreate nature, Malcolm said. Let's be clear, zoos take the nature that already exists and modify it very slightly to create holding pens for animals. Even those minimal modifications often fail. The animals escape with regularity, but a zoo is not a model for this park. This park is attempting something far more ambitious than that. Something much more akin to making a space station on Earth. Gennaro shook his head. I don't understand. Well, it's very simple. Except for the air, which flows freely, everything in the park is meant to be isolated. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. The animals kept here are never to mix with greater ecosystems of Earth. They are never to escape. And they never have, Hammond snorted. Such isolation is impossible, Malcolm said flatly. It simply can't be done. It can, it's done all the time. I beg your pardon, Malcolm said, but you don't know what you're talking about. You ignorant little snot, Hammond said. He stood and walked out of the room. Gentlemen, Gennaro said. I'm sorry, Malcolm said, but the point remains. What we call nature is in fact a complex system of greater subtlety and that we are willing to accept. We make a simplified image of nature and then we botch it up. I'm no environmentalist, but you have to understand what you don't understand. How many times must the point be made? How many times are we going to see the evidence? We build the Aswan Dam, yeah, sure, and claim it is going to revitalize the country. Instead, it destroys the fertile Nile Delta, produces parasitic infections, and wrecks the Egyptian economy. We build that, excuse me, Gennaro said, but I think I hear the helicopter. That's probably the sample for Dr. Grant to look at. He's died out of the room. They all followed. You're acting a little snot. So Hammond's a proper dick in this book, and it makes it more fun in, like, certain ways. Like, I love movie Hammond, but yeah. Whoa. At the foot of the mountain, Gennaro was screaming over the sound of the helicopter. The veins of his neck stood out. You did what? You invited who? Take it easy, Hammond said. Gennaro screamed, are you out of your goddamn mind? Now look here, Hammond said, drawing up himself. I think we have to get something clear. No, Gennaro said. No, you get something clear. This is not a social outing. This is not a weekend excursion. This is my island, Hammond said, and I can invite whomever I want. This is a serious investigation of your island because your investors are concerned that it's out of control. We think this is a very dangerous place, and you're not going to shut me down, Donald. I will if I have to. This is a safe space, Hammond said. No matter what the damn mathematician is saying, it's not, and I'll demonstrate its safety, and I want you to put them right back on the helicopter, Gennaro said. Can't, he said, pointing towards the clouds. It's already leaving. And indeed, the sound of the rotors were fading away. Oh, damn it, Gennaro said. Don't you see you're needlessly risking... Hammond said. Let's continue this later. I don't want to upset the children. Grant turned and saw two children coming down the hillside led by Ed Regis. There was a bespectacled boy of about 11 and a girl a few years younger. Perhaps 7 or 8? Her blonde hair pushed up under a Mets baseball cap and a baseball glove slung over her shoulder. The two kids made their way nimbly down the path from the helipad and stopped some distance from Gennaro and Hammond. Low, under his breath, Gennaro said, Christ. Now take it easy, Hammond said. Their parents are getting a divorce, and I want them to have a fun weekend. The girl waved tentatively. Hi, Grandpa, she said. We're here. The tour. Tim Murphy could see at once that something was wrong. His grandfather was in the middle of an argument with the younger red-faced man opposite him, and the other adult standing behind him looked embarrassed and uncomfortable. Alexis felt the tension too, because she hung back, tossing her baseball in the air. He had to push her. Go on, Lex. Go on yourself, Timmy. Don't be a worm, he said. Lex glared at him, but Ed Regis said cheerfully, I'll introduce you to everyone and then we can take the tour. I have to go, Lex said. I'll just introduce you first, Ed Regis said. No, I have to go. But Ed Regis was already making introductions. First to Grandpa, who kissed them both, and then to the man he was arguing with. This man was muscular, and his name was Gennaro. The rest of the introductions were a blur to Tim. There was a blonde woman wearing shorts and a man with a beard who wore jeans and a Hawaiian shirt. He looked like an outdoors type, then a fat college kid who had something to do with computers, and finally a thin man in black, who didn't shake hands but just nodded his head. Tim was trying to organise impressions and was looking at the blonde woman's legs, when he suddenly realised that he knew who the bearded man was. Your mouth is open, Lex said. Tim said, I know him. Oh, sure. You just met him. No, Tim said. I have his book. The bearded man said, What book is that, Tim? Lost World of the Dinosaurs, Tim said. Alexis snickered. Daddy says Tim has dinosaurs on the brain, she said. Tim hardly heard her. He was thinking of what he knew about Alan Grant. Alan Grant was one of the principal advocates of the theory that dinosaurs were warm-blooded. He had done a lot of digging in places called Egg Hill in Montana, which was famous because there were so many dinosaur eggs that had been found there. Professor Grant had most of the dinosaur eggs that had been discovered. He was also a good illustrator, and he drew pictures for his own books. Alan with a beard and a Hawaiian shirt is such a weird image. It is, isn't it? It's like when I first said I tried to picture it, and I think the concept art is like similar. People say it's meant to be similar to in the Lost World. There's the guy. There's a big giant part of the group that basically hat, beard, all of that stuff. Similar looks to original designs. So it was kind of one of those ones where you're like, oh, okay, that's sort of what he could have looked like. Dinosaurs on the brain, the bearded man said. Well, as a matter of fact, I have the same problem. Dad says dinosaurs are really stupid, Lex said. He says Tim should get out in the air and play more sports. Tim felt embarrassed. I thought you had to go, he said. In a minute, Lex said. I thought you were in such a rush. I'm the one who would know, don't you think, Timothy? She said, putting her hands on her hips, copying her mother's irritating stance. Tell you what, Ed said. Well, why don't we all just head over to the visitor centre and we can begin the tour? Everybody started walking. Tim heard Gennaro whisper to his grandfather, I could kill you for this. And then Tim looked up and saw that Dr. Grant had fallen into step beside him. How old are you, Tim? 11. How long have you been interested in dinosaurs? Grant asked. Tim swallowed. A while now. He said he felt nervous to be talking to Dr. Grant. We go to museums sometimes, and I can talk my family into it. My father. Your father's not especially interested? Tim nodded and told Grant about his family's last trip to the Museum of Natural History. His father had looked at a skeleton and said, "That's a big one." But Grant is more interested in not being an arsehole to children. Tim said, "No, Dad, that's a medium-sized one. A Camptosaurus." Camptosaurus? I'm going to have to be looking up even more dinosaurs. Oh, I don't know. It looks pretty big to me. It's not even fully grown, Dad. His father squinted at the skeleton. What is it, Jurassic? Jeez, no, Cretaceous. Cretaceous? What's the difference between Cretaceous and Jurassic? Only about 100 million years, Tim said. Cretaceous is older? No, Dad, Jurassic is older. Well, his father said, stepping back, looks pretty damn big to me. And he turned to Tim for agreement. Tim knew he had better agree with his father, so he just muttered something, and they went on to find another exhibit. Tim stood in front of one skeleton, a Tyrannosaurus rex, the mightiest predator the Earth had ever known. For a long time, finally, his father said, "What are you looking at?" "I'm counting the vertebrae." The what? The vertebrae. And the backbone. I know what a vertebrae are. Why are you counting them? I think they're wrong. Tyrannosaurus should only have 37 vertebrae in the tail. This has more. You mean to tell me, his father said, that the Museum of Natural History has a skeleton that's wrong? I can't believe that. It's wrong, Tim said. His father stomped off toward the guard in the corner. What did you do now? His mother said to Tim. I didn't do anything. I just said that the dinosaur is wrong, that's all. And then his father came back with a funny look on his face because, of course, he told the guard that the Tyrannosaurus had too many vertebrae in the tail. How do you know that? His father asked. I read it, Tim said. It's pretty amazing, son, he said, and he put his hand on his shoulder, giving me a squeeze. You know how many vertebrae belong in that tail? I've never seen anything like it. You really do have dinosaurs on the brain. And then his father said he wanted to catch the last half of the Mets game on TV, and Lex said she did too. So they left the museum, and Tim didn't see another dinosaurs, which was why they had come here in the first place. But that's how things happen in this family. How things used to happen in this family. Tim corrected himself. Now that his father was getting a divorce from his mother, things would probably be different. His father had already moved out, and even though it was weird at first, Tim liked him. He thought his mother had a boyfriend, but he couldn't be sure, and of course, he wouldn't mention it to Lex. Lex was heartbroken to be separated from her father. In the last few weeks, she had become so obnoxious that... Was it 5027? Grant said. I'm sorry, Tim said. The Tyrannosaurus at the museum. Was it 5027? Yes, Tim said. How did you know? Grant smiled. They've been talking about fixing it for years, but now it may never happen. Why is that? Because of what has taken place here, Grant said, on your grandfather's island. Tim shook his head. He didn't understand what Grant was on about. My mum said it was just a resort, with swimming and tennis. Not exactly, Grant said. I'll explain as we walk along. Now I'm the damn babysitter, Ed Regis thought unhappily, tapping his foot as he waited in the visitor centre. That was what the old man had told him. You watch my kids like a hawk, they're your responsibility for the weekend. Ed Regis didn't like it at all. He felt degraded. He wasn't a damn babysitter. For that matter, he wasn't a damn tour guide, even for VIPs. He was the head of public relations for Jurassic Park. He had more to prepare between now and the opening a year away. Just to coordinate with the PR firms in San Francisco and London, and the agencies in New York and Tokyo was a full-time job, especially since the agencies couldn't yet be told what the resort's real attraction was. The firms were all designing teaser campaigns, nothing specific, and they were unhappy. Creative people needed nurturing. They needed encouragement to do their best work. He couldn't waste his time taking scientists on tours. But that was the trouble with a career in public relations. Nobody saw you as professional. Regis had been down here on the island on and off for the past 7 months, and they were still pushing odd jobs on him. Like that episode back in January. Harding should have handled that. Harding or Owens, the general contractor. Instead, it had fallen to Ed. What did he know about taking care of some sick workman? And now he was a tour guide and a babysitter? He turned back and counted the heads, still one short. Then in the back, he saw Dr. Sattler emerge from the bathroom. All right, folks, let's begin our tour on the second floor. Tim went with the others, following Mr. Regis up the black suspended staircase to the second floor of the building. They read past a sign. Closed area. Authorized personnel only beyond this point. Tim felt a thrill when he saw that sign. They walked down the second floor hallway. One wall was glass, looking out at the balcony with the palm trees and the light mist. On the other wall was stenciled doors like offices, park warden, guest services, general manager. Halfway down the corridor, they came to a glass partition marked with another sign. Biohazard. Caution. Biological hazard. This laboratory conforms to USG P4 EK3 genetic protocols. Underneath were more signs. Caution. Teratogenic substances. Pregnant women avoid exposure to this area. Danger. Radioactive isotopes in use. Carcinogenic potential. Tim grew more excited all the time. Teratogenic substances? Things that made monsters. It gave him a thrill, and he was disappointed to hear Ed Regis say, "Never mind the signs, they're just up for legal reasons. I can assure you everything is perfectly safe." He led them through a door. There was a guard on the other side. Ed Regis turned to the group. "You may have noticed that we have a minimum of personnel on the island. We can run this resort with a total of 20 people. Of course, we'll have more when we have guests here, but at the moment, there's only 20. Here's our control room. The entire park is controlled from here." They paused before windows and peered into a darkened room that looked like a small version of mission control. There was a vertical glass see-through map of the park, and facing it, a bank of glowing computer consoles. Some of these screens displayed data, but most of them showed video images from around the park. There were just two people inside, standing and talking. "The man on the left is our chief engineer, John Arnold." Regis pointed at a thin man in a button-down short-sleeved shirt and tie, smoking a cigarette. And next to him, a park warden, Mr. Robert Muldoon, the famous white hunter from Nairobi. Muldoon was a burly man in khaki, sunglasses dangling from his shirt pocket. He glanced at the group, gave a brief nod, and then turned back to the computer screens. "I'm sure you want to see this room," Ed Regis said, "but first, let's show you how we obtain our dinosaur DNA." The sign on the door said extractions, and, like all the doors in the laboratory building, it opened with a security card. Ed Regis slipped the card into the slot, the light blinked, and the door opened. Inside, Tim saw a small room bathed in green light. 4 technicians in lab coats were peered into a double-barreled stereo microscopes, or looking at images on high-resolution video screens. The room was filled with yellow stones. The stones were in glass shelves, in cardboard boxes, in large pull-out trays. Each stone was tagged and numbered in black ink. Regis introduced Henry Wu, a slender man in his 30s. Dr. Wu is our chief geneticist. I'll let him explain what we do here. Henry Wu smiled. "At least I'll try," he said. "Genetics is a bit complicated, but you're probably wondering where our dinosaur DNA comes from." "It crossed my mind," Grant said. "As a matter of fact," Wu said, "there are 2 possible sources. Using the Loy antibody extraction technique, we can sometimes get DNA directly from dinosaur bones." "What kind of a yield?" Grant asked. "Well, most soluble protein is leached out during fossilization, but 20% of the proteins are still recoverable by grinding up the bones and using Loy's procedure. Dr. Loy himself has used it to obtain proteins from extinct Australian marsupials, as well as blood cells from ancient human remains. His technique is so refined it can work with a mere 50 nanograms of material. That's 50 billionth of a gram." "And you've adapted his technique here?" Grant asked. "Only as a backup," Wu said. "As you can imagine, a 20% yield is insufficient for our work. We need to get the entire dinosaur DNA strand in order to clone. And we get it here." He held up one of the yellow stones. "From amber, the fossilized resin of prehistoric tree sap." Grant looked at Ellie, then at Malcolm. "That's really quite clever," Malcolm said, nodding. "I still don't understand," Grant admitted. "Tree sap," Wu explained, "often flows over insects and traps them. The insects then are perfectly preserved within the fossil. One finds all kinds of insects in amber, including biting insects that have sucked blood from larger animals." "Sucked the blood," Grant repeated. His mouth fell open. "You mean suck the blood of dinosaurs?" "Hopefully, yes." "And then the insects are preserved in amber?" Grant shook his head. "I'll be damned, that just might work. I assure you, It does work, Wu said. He moved to one of the microscopes where a technician positioned a piece of amber containing a fly under the microscope. On the video monitor, they watched as he inserted a long needle through the amber into the thorax of the prehistoric fly. If this insect has any foreign blood cells, we may be able to extract them and obtain paleo-DNA, the DNA of an extinct creature. We won't know for sure, of course, until we extract whatever is in there, replicate it, and test it. This is what we have been doing for 5 years now. It's been a long, slow process, but it has paid off. Actually, dinosaur DNA is somewhat easier to extract by the process than mammal DNA. That's just so much easier. The reason is that mammal red cells have no nuclei, and thus no DNA in their red cells. To clone a mammal, you must find a white cell, which is much rarer than red cells, but dinosaurs have nucleated red cells, as do modern birds. It is one of the many indications that we have that dinosaurs aren't really reptiles at all. They are just big, leathery birds. Tim saw that Dr. Grant still looked skeptical, and Dennis Nedry, the messy fat man, appeared completely uninterested, as if he knew it already. Nedry kept looking impatiently towards the next room. I see Mr. Nedry has spotted the next phase of our work, Wu said, how we identify the DNA that we have extracted. For that, we use powerful computers. They went through the sliding doors into a chilled room. There was a loud humming sound. 2 6-foot-tall round towers stood in the center of the room, and along the walls were rows of waist-high stainless steel boxes. This is our high-tech laundromat, Dr. Wu said. The boxes along the walls are all Hamachi Hood automated gene sequences. They are being run at very high speed by the Cray XMP supercomputers, which are the towers in the center of the room. In essence, you are standing in the middle of an incredibly powerful genetics factory. There were several monitors, all running so fast it was hard to see what they were showing. We pushed a button and showed one image. It's just a shit ton of DNA. Here you see the actual structure of a small fragment of dinosaur DNA. Notice the sequence is made up of 4 basic compounds. Adenine, thymine, guanine, yep, sure, and cytosine, yep, they're all totally normal words. The amount of DNA probably contains instructions to make a single protein, say a hormone or an enzyme. The full DNA molecule contains 3 billion of these bases. If we look to the screen like this once a second for 8 hours a day, it would still take more than 2 years to look at the entire DNA strand. It's that big. He pointed to the image. This is a typical example because you see the DNA has an error. Down here, line 1201. Much of the DNA we extracted is fragmented or incomplete. So the first thing we have to do is repair it, or rather the computer has to. It'll cut the DNA using what are called restriction enzymes. The computer will select a variety of enzymes that might do the job. More DNA. Here is the same section of DNA with the points of the restriction enzymes located. As you can see in line 1201, the 2 enzymes will cut on either side of the damage point. Ordinarily, we let the computers decide which to use, but we also need to know what base pairs we should insert to repair the injury. For that, we have to align various cut fragments like so. More cut fragments. Now we are finding a fragment of DNA that overlaps the injury area, and we will tell us what's missing. And you can see we can find it. And go ahead and make the repair. The dark bars you see are restriction fragments, small sections of dinosaur DNA broken by enzymes and then analysed. The computer is now recombining them by searching for overlapping sections of code. It's a little bit of like putting a puzzle together. The computer can do it very rapidly. More DNA. And here is the revived DNA strand, repaired by the computer. I don't know what you want from me. It's not like I fucking studied it. How does the audio thing turn? I don't know. I haven't. I don't think they. I think it just says DNA, like in the sense of they just go, here's this thing, here's another thing. Last time I listened to that one we were in a different place of living, so fuck knows. The operation you've witnessed would have taken months in a conventional lab. We can do it in seconds. Then are you working with the entire DNA strand? Grant said. Oh no, Wu said, that's impossible. We've come a long way from the 60s, where it took a whole laboratory 4 years to decode a screen like this. Now the computers can do it in a couple of hours, or even so, the DNA molecule is too big. We look only at sections of the strand that differ from animal to animal, or form contemporary DNA. Only a few percent of the nucleoids differ from one species to the next. That's what we analyse, and it's still a big job. Dennis Nedry yawned. He'd long ago concluded that InGen must be doing something like this. A couple of years earlier, when InGen hired Nedry to design the part control systems, one of the initial design parameters called for data records with 3x10 fields. Sure. Nedry just assumed that was a mistake and had called Palo Alto to verify it. But they had told him the spec was correct. 3 billion fields. Nedry had worked on a lot of large systems. He made a name for himself setting up a worldwide telephone communications for multi-international corporations. Often those systems had millions of records. He was used to that. But InGen wanted something so much larger. Puzzled, Nedry had gone to see Barney Fellows over at Symbolics, near the MIT campus in Cambridge. What kind of database is 3 billion records, Barney? A mistake, Barney said. They put in an extra 0 or 2? It's not a mistake. I checked. It's all they want. But that's crazy, Barney said. It's not workable. Even if you have the fastest processors and blindly fast algorithms, a search would still take days, maybe weeks. Yeah, Nedry said. I know. Fortunately, I'm not being asked to do algorithms. I'm just being asked to reserve storage and memory for the overall system. But still, what could the database be for? Barney frowned. You operating under an ND? Yes, Nedry said. Most of his jobs required non-disclosure agreements. Can you tell me anything? It's a bioengineering firm. Bioengineering? Well, there's the obvious, which is a DNA molecule. Oh, come on. Nobody could be analysing a DNA molecule. He knew biologists were talking about the Human Genome Project to analyse a complete human DNA strand. But that would take 10 years of coordinated effort, and involving laboratories around the world. It was an enormous undertaking, and as big as the Manhattan Project, which made the atomic bomb. This is a private company, Nedry said, with 3 billion records. I don't know what else it could be. Maybe they're being optimistic, designing their system? Very optimistic, Nedry said. Maybe they're just analysing DNA fragments. But they've got to RAM-intensive algorithms. It made more sense. Certain database search techniques ate up a lot of memory. You know who did the algorithms? No, Nedry said. The companies are very secretive. Well, my guess is they're doing something with DNA. What's the system? Multi-XMP. Multi-XMP? You mean more than one cray? Wow. Barney was frowning now, thinking that won over. Can you tell me anything else? Sorry, Nedry said. I can't. And he had gone back and designed the control system. It had taken him and his programming team more than a year. And it was especially difficult because the company won't ever tell him what the subsystems were for. The instructions were simple. Design a module for record keeping, or design a module for visual display. They gave him the design parameters, but no details about use. He had been working in the dark, and now that the system was up and running, he wasn't surprised to learn there were bugs. What did they expect? They ordered him down there in a panic, all hot and bothered about his bugs. It was annoying, Nedry thought. Nedry turned back to the group as Grant asked, and once the computer has analysed the DNA, how did you know what animal it encodes? We have 2 procedures, Wu said. The first is phylogenetic mapping, sure. I don't know. DNA evolves over time, like everything else in an organism, hands or feet, or any other physical attribute. So we can take a known piece of DNA and determine roughly by a computer where it fits in the evolutionary sequence. It's time-consuming, but it can be done. And the other way? Wu shrugged. Just grow it and find out what it is. He said, that's usually what we do. I'll show you how that's accomplished. Tim felt a growing impatience as the tour continued. He liked technical things, but even so, he was losing interest. They came to the next door, which was marked fertilization. Dr. Wu unlocked the door with a security card, and they went inside. Tim saw still another room with technicians working at microscopes. In the back was a section entirely lit by a blue ultraviolet light. Dr. Wu explained that the DNA work required the interruption of cellular mitosis at precise instants, and therefore they kept some of the most virulent poisons in the world. Helotoxins, colsoniodes? I don't fucking know. Bit alkaloids. So Nedry on the tour, but like not actually working in the part, just helps it up. Yeah. So Nedry in this one isn't sat there with his butterfingers. He does everything a bit shady. But I mean, very different. Very different. Kill any living animal within a second or two. Tim would have liked to know more about the poisons, but Dr. Wu droned on about using unfertilized crocodile ova. Yeah, no, that actually just says ova. Okay. And replacing the DNA. And then Professor Grant asked some complicated questions. To one side of the room were big tanks marked Liquid N. And there were big walk-in freezers with shelves of frozen embryos, each stored in a tiny silver foil wrapper. Lex was bored. Keep going. Why does this thing not want to repeat? Lex was bored. Nedry was yawning, and even Dr. Sattler was losing interest. Tim was tired of looking at these complicated laboratories. He wanted to see the dinosaurs. The next room was labelled Hatchery. It's a little warm and damp in here, Dr. Wu said. We keep it at 99 degrees Fahrenheit and relative humidity at 100%. We also run a higher O2 concentration. It's up to 33%. Jurassic atmosphere, Grant said. Yes. At least we presume so. If any of you feel faint, just tell me. Dr. Wu inserted his security card into the slot, and the outer door hissed open. Just a reminder, don't touch anything in the room. Some of the eggs are permeable? Sure. To skin oils. And watch your heads, the sensors are always moving. He opened the inner door to the nursery, and they went inside. Tim faced a vast open room, bathed in deep infrared light. The eggs lay on long tables, their pale outlines obscured by the hissing low mist that covers the tables. The eggs were all moving gently, rocking. Reads the sand. Mr. Wu, I feel faint. When don't you? Reptile eggs contain large amounts of oak, but no water at all. The embryos must extract water from the surrounding environment, hence the mist. Dr. Wu explained that each table contained 150 eggs and represented a new batch of DNA extractions. The batches were identified numbers at each table. Steg 458/2 or Trike 390/4. Waist deep in mist, the workers in the nursery moved from one egg to the next, plunging their hands into the mist, turning the eggs every hour. So by people, not by machines. Checking the temperatures with thermal sensors. The room was monitored by overhead TV cameras and motion sensors. An overhead thermal sensor moved from one egg to the next, touching each with a flexible wand and beeping and then going on. In this hatchery, we have produced more than a dozen crops of extractions, giving us a total of 238 live animals. Our survival rate is somewhere around 0.4%. Yeah, no, generally it's 0.4%. And we naturally want to improve that, but by our computer analysis, we're working with something like 500 variables, 120 environmental, another 200 intra-egg, and the rest from the genetic material itself. Our eggs are plastic. The embryos are mechanically inserted and then hatched here. And how long to grow? Dinosaurs mature rapidly, attaining full size in 2 to 4 years. So we have a number of adult specimens in the park. What do the numbers mean? Those codes, Wu said. Oh, God. Identify the various batch extractions of DNA. The first 4 letters identifies the animal being grown over there. That trike means Triceratops, and the steg means Stegosaurus, and so on. And this table here, Grant said, the code said XXXX0001/1. Beneath was scrawled presumed Koala? Kolo. Kulu. Fine, sure. There's a new batch of DNA, Wu said. We don't know exactly what will grow out. The first time an extraction is done, we don't know for sure what animal it is. You can see it's marked presumed Kolu. It's likely to be a Colusaurus. Okay, again, so many more little extras that are never in the movies. A small herbivore, if I remember. It's hard for me to keep track of all the names. There's something like 300 genera of dinosaurs known so far. 347, Tim said. Grant smiled and then said, "Is anything hatching now?" "Not at the moment. The incubation period varies with each animal, but in general it runs about 2 months. We tried to stagger hatchings to make less work for the nursery staff. You can imagine how it is when we have 150 animals born within a few days. Though, of course, most don't survive. Actually, these X's are due any day now. Any other questions? No? Then we'll go to the nursery where the newborns are." It was a circle room, all white. There were some incubators of the kind used in hospital nurseries, but they were empty at the moment. Rags and toys were scattered across the floor. A young woman in a white coat was seated on the floor, her back to them. "What have you got here today, Kathy?" Dr. Will asked. "Not much," she said. "Just a baby raptor." "Let's have a look." The woman got to her feet and stepped aside. Tim heard Nedry say, "It looks like a lizard." The animal on the floor was about 1.5 feet long, the size of a small monkey. Them losing so many diamonds seems like an insane money lost. It does, doesn't it? They have fucking too many to fucking just lose. Well, Hammond's an eccentric billionaire. He's happy to spend the fucking funds. He's a bitch. It was dark yellow with brown stripes, like a tiger. You know, like what we finally get when we go to Lost World. I'm just some fucking brown bastards. It had a lizard's head and a long snout, but it stood upright on strong hind legs, balanced on a thick, straight tail. Its smaller front legs waved in the air. It cocked its head to one side and peered at the visitors staring down at it. This ain't really how people are starving, my G. Legit. Spare no expense. "Velociraptor," Alan Grant said in a low voice. "Velociraptor mongoliensis." I've never been able to say the Latin name for it, and I never will. "A predator. This one's only 6 weeks old." "I just excavated a raptor," Grant said as he bent down for a closer look. Immediately, the little lizard sprung up, leaping over Grant's head and into Tim's arms. Would this Hammond want to make his park accessible for all? Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. Hey. Oh, God. This is what happens with 7 hours of sewing does to you people. "They can jump," Wu said. "The babies can jump. So can the adults, as a matter of fact." Tim caught the velociraptor and held it to him. The little animal didn't weigh very much, a pound or two. The skin was warm and completely dry. The little head was inches from Tim's face. Its dark, beady eyes stared at him. A small forked tongue flicked in and out. "Will he hurt me?" "No, she's friendly." "Are you sure about that?" asked Gennaro with a look of concern. "Oh, quite sure," Wu said. "At least until she grows a little. But in any case, the babies don't have any teeth. Even egg teeth." "Egg teeth?" Nedry said. "Most dinosaurs are born with egg teeth, little horns on the tip of their nose like rhino horns to help them break out of the eggs. But raptors aren't. They poke a hole in the eggs with the pointed snouts, and then the nursery staff has to help them out." "You have to help them out? What happens in the wild?" In the wild? Where they breed in the wild? When they make a nest? "Oh, they can't do that," we said. "None of our animals are capable of breeding. Breathing, that'll be funny. That's why we have this nursery. It's the only way to replace stock in Jurassic Park." "Why can't the animals breed?" "Well, as you can imagine, it's important that they not be able to breed," Wu said. "And whenever we faced a critical matter such as this, we design redundant systems. That is, we always arrange at least 2 control procedures. In this case, there are 2 independent reasons why the animals can't breed. First of all, they're sterile, because we irradiate. Irradiate? Yeah. Then with X-rays. And the second reason? All the animals in Jurassic Park are female," Wu said. Malcolm said, "I should like some clarification about this, because it seems to me that irradiation... Am I just really... Irradiation. It is irradiation. I'm not going crazy. It's fraught with an uncertainty. The radiation dose may be wrong or aimed at the wrong or anatomical area of the animal. Irradiation. Irradiation. Okay. I'm not like going crazy. It's the... At least slowly but surely. All true, Wu said, but we are confident we have destroyed... Gonadal? Yes, tissue. And as for them all females, is that check? Does anyone go out and lift up the dinosaur skirts to have a look? I mean, how does one determine the sex of a dinosaur anyway? Sex organs vary with species. It's easy to tell on some, subtle on others. But to answer your question, the reason we know all the animals are female is that we literally make them that way. We control their chromosomes. And we control the intra-egg development environment. From a bioengineering standpoint, females are easier to breed. You probably know that all the vertebrate embryos are inherently female. We all start life as females. It takes some kind of added effect, such as a hormone at the right moment during development, to transform the growing embryo into a male. But left on its own devices, the embryo will naturally become female. So all our animals are female. We tend to refer to some of them as male, such as the Tyrannosaurus rex. We call it a him, but in fact, they're all female, and believe me, they can't breed. The little velociraptor sniffed at Tim, and then rubbed her head against Tim's neck. Tim giggled. She wants you to feed her, Wu said. What does she eat? Mice. But she's just eaten, so she won't feed again for a while. The little raptor leaned back, stared at Tim, and wiggled her forearms again in the air. Tim saw the small claws and the 3 fingers on each hand. Then the raptor burrowed her head against his neck again. Grant came over and peered critically at the creature. He touched the tiny 3-clawed hand. He said to Tim, Do you mind? And Tim released the raptor into his hands. Grant flipped the animal on its back, inspecting it, while the little lizard wriggled and squirmed. Then he lifted the animal high to look at its profile, and it screamed shrilly. Dinosaur said, Watch me. Legit. Dinosaur said, How about that? She doesn't like that. She doesn't like to be held away from body contact. The raptor was still screaming, but Grant paid no attention. Now he was squeezing the tail, feeling the bone. Regis said, Dr. Grant, if you please. I'm not hurting her. Dr. Grant, these creatures are not of our world. They come from a time where there were no human beings around to prod and poke them. I'm not prodding them. Dr. Grant, put her down, Ed Regis said. But now! Regis was starting to get annoyed. Grant handed the animal back to Tim. It stopped squealing. Tim could feel its little heart beating rapidly against his chest. I'm sorry, Dr. Grant, Regis said, but these animals are delicate in infancy. We have lost several from a postnatal stress syndrome, which we believe is it's just meditated. We're just going with that. Sometimes they die within 5 minutes. Tim petted the little raptor. It's okay, kid, he said. Everything's fine now. The heart was still beating rapidly. We feel it's important that these animals here be treated in the most humane manner, Regis said. I promise you that you will have every opportunity to examine them later. But Grant couldn't stay away. He moved towards the animal in Tim's arms, peering at it. The little velociraptor opened her jaws and hissed at Grant in a posture of sudden intense fury. Fascinating, Grant said. Can I stay and play with her? Tim said. Not right now, Ed Regis said, glancing at his watch. It's 3 o'clock and it's a good time for the tour of the park itself. So you can see all the dinosaurs and the habitats we have designed for them. Seems like reptiles to me, being little bitches. Wanting the body contact. Tim released the velociraptor, which scampered across the room, grabbed a cloth rag, put it in her mouth, and tugged at the end of it with her tiny claws. Control. Walking back toward the control room, Malcolm said, I have one more question, Dr. Wu. How many different species have you made so far? I'm not exactly sure, Wu said. I believe the number at the moment is 15? 15 species? Do you know, Ed? Yes, it's 15, Ed Regis said, nodding. You don't know for sure? Malcolm said. Wu smiled. I stopped counting, he said. After the first dozen, you have to realize that sometimes we think we have an animal correctly made from the standpoint of DNA, which is our most basic work, and the animal grows for 6 months and then something untoward happens. And we realize there is some error. God, Jesus, reading absolutely fucking kills it. It's dying of stress easily. Oh, yeah, true. A releaser gene isn't operating, a hormone not being released, or some other problem in the development sequence. So we have to go back to the drawing board with that animal, so to speak. At one time, I thought I had more than 20 species, but now only 15. And is one of the 15 species, what was the name? A compy, Grant said. You have made some compies or whatever they're called? Oh, yes. Wu said immediately. Compies are distinctive animals. And we made a unusually large number of them. Why is that? Well, we want Jurassic Park to be as real of an environment as possible. As authentic as possible. And the compy are actually scavengers from the Jurassic period, rather than like jackals. So we wanted to have the compies around to clean up. You mean dispose of the carcasses? Yes, if there were any. But with only 230 odd animals in our total population, we don't have many carcasses, Wu said. That wasn't the primary objective. Actually, we wanted the companies for another kind of waste management entirely. Which was, well, Wu said, we have some very big herbivores on the island. We have specifically tried not to breed the biggest sauropods, and even so, we've got several animals in excess of 30 tons walking around here. Many others in the 5 to 10 ton area. That gives us 2 problems. One is feeding them, and in fact, we must import food to the island every 2 weeks. There is no way an island this small can support these animals for any time. But the other problem is waste. I don't know if you've ever seen elephant droppings, Wu said, but they are substantial. Each spore is roughly the size of a soccer ball. Imagine the droppings of a brontosaur, 10 times as large. Now imagine the droppings of a herd of such animals, as we keep here. And then the largest animals do not digest their food terribly well, so they excrete a great deal. And in the 65 million years since dinosaurs disappeared, apparently the bacteria that specializes in breaking down the feces has disappeared too. At least the sauropod feces don't decompose readily. That's a problem, Malcolm said. I assure you it is. We had a hell of a time trying to solve it. You probably know that in Africa there is a specific insect, the dung beetle, which eats elephant feces. Many other large species have associated creatures that have evolved to eat their excrement. Well, it turns out that compies will eat the feces of large herbivores and redigest it, and the droppings of compies are readily breaking down by contemporary bacteria, so given enough compies, our problem was solved. How many compies did you make? I've forgotten exactly, but I think the target population was 50 animals. We attained that, or very nearly so. In 3 batches, we did a batch every 6 months until we had the number. 50 animals, Malcolm said. There's a lot to keep track of. The control room is built to do exactly that. They'll show you how it's done. I'm sure, Malcolm said. But if one of these compies were to escape from the island, to get away, they can't get away. I know, but just supposing one did. You mean like the animal that was found on the beach? The one that bit the American girl? Yes, for example. I don't know what explanation for that animal is, Wu said, but I know it can't possibly be one of ours. For 2 reasons. First, the control procedures. Our animals are counted by computer every few minutes. If one was missing, we'd know at once. And the second reason? The mainland is more than 100 miles away. It takes almost a day to get there by boat, and in the outside world, our animals would die within 12 hours. How do you know? Because I've made sure that precisely what will occur, Wu said, finally showing a trace of irritation. Look, we're not fools. We understand that they're prehistoric animals. They are part of a vanished a complex web of life that became extinct millions of years ago. They might have no predators in the contemporary wild, no checks on their growth. We don't want them to survive in the wild, so I made them lysine deficient. I inserted a gene that makes a simple faulty enzyme in protein metabolism. As a result, the animals cannot... Will you just go away for 2 moments? Why is WhatsApp always coming up on my PC? Close. Let's explain how the dinos got there. Yeah. Obviously, not anytime soon. Fucking WhatsApp put me off. Right, as a result, the animals cannot manufacture the amino acid lysine. They must ingest it from the outside, unless they got a rich dietary source of exogenous lysine supplied by us in tablet form. They'll go into a coma within 12 hours and expire. These animals are genetically engineered to be able to be unable to survive in the real world. They can only live here in Jurassic Park. They're not free at all. They essentially are prisoners. Here's the control room, Henry just said. Now that you know how the animals are made, you'll want to see how the control room for the park itself before we go out to... He stopped. Through the thick glass window, the room was dark. The monitors were off, except for 3 that displayed spinning numbers and the image of a large boat. What's going on? Henry just said. Oh, hell, they're docking. Docking? Every 2 weeks, the supply boat comes in from the mainland. One of the things this island doesn't have is a good harbour or a good dock. It's a little hairy to get the ship in when the seas are rough. Could be a few minutes. He rapped on the window, but the men inside paid no attention. I guess we'll have to wait then. Ellie turned to Dr. Wu. You mentioned before that sometimes you make an animal and it seems fine, but as it grows it shows itself to be flawed? Yes. I don't think there's any other way around that. We can duplicate the DNA, but there is a lot of timing and development. And we don't know if everything is working unless we actually see an animal develop correctly. Grant said, how do you know if it's developing correctly? No one's ever seen these animals before. Wu smiled. I've often thought that. I suppose it's a bit of a paradox. Eventually, I hope paleontologists such as yourself will compare our animals with the fossil record to verify the development sequence. Ellie said, but the animals we just saw, the velociraptor, you said it was Mongolian. From the location of the amber, Wu said it is from China. Interesting. And I was just digging up an infant Anthropus. Are there any fully grown raptors here? Yes, Edry just said without hesitation. 8 adult females. The females are the real hunters. The pack hunters, you know. Will we see them on the tour? No, Wu said, looking suddenly uncomfortable. And there was an awkward pause. Wu looked at Regis. 8. Yeah, we're cooked. You don't remember that in the movie? We bred... Muldoon says we bred 8 at first until the big one came in and killed all but 2. Most of the raptors are left. If you look at any form of Jurassic fucking media, most of the damn fucking bastards are left. They say, we made 8. So if you think about the movies and games, they go, we made 8, big one came in, big one went, now fuck that, and kept 2 of them. So there was, those 3 get fucking molested. Fight T-Rex, have fun, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they also then show up in the Telltale game. More raptors turn up in that. I think there's like 3. Survival is about to have raptors. That's like another 3. Somehow we have 9. Obviously with Survival, I can believe that maybe the raptors lived from the T-Rex fight. Sure. The Telltale game, nobody believes. But straight up they go, we have 3, and every form of media went, hey, here's a raptor, here's a rat, there's another one, there's another, and I'm like, well, just say you still had 8. You should have just left it with 8. You should have just left it with the 8. There's always raptors. There's always more raptors than there should be raptors. Always. There's just so fucking many. Anyway, not for a while, Regis said cheerfully. The velociraptors haven't been integrated into the park setting just yet. We keep them in a holding pen. Can I see them there? Why, yes, of course, in fact. While we're waiting, you might have to go around and have a look at them. I certainly would, Grant said. Absolutely, Ellie said. I want to go too, Tim said eagerly. Just go around the back of this building, past the support facility, and you'll see the pen. Don't get too close to the fence. Do you want to go too? Regis said to the girl. No. Lex said. She looked brazenly at Regis. You want to play a little pickle? Throw a few? Well, sure, Ed Regis said. Why don't you and I go down the stairs and we'll do that while we wait for the control room to open up. Grant walked with Ellie and Malcolm around the back of the main building, with the kid tagging along. Grant liked kids. There it is. It was impossible not to like any group so openly enthusiastic about dinosaurs. Grant used to watch kids in museums as they stared open-mouthed at big skeletons rising above them. He wondered what their fascination really represented. He finally decided that children liked dinosaurs because these giant creatures personified the uncontrollable force of looming authority. They were symbolic parents, fascinating and frightening. Like parents, and kids love them. And they love their parents. He did. He's a very different man. He's a very different man. Very, very different. God. Where the fuck are we? Grant also suspected that was why even young children learned the names of dinosaurs. It never failed to amaze him when a 3-year-old shrieked Stegosaurus. Saying those complicated names was a way of exerting power over the giant's way of being in control. What do you know about Velociraptor? Grant asked him. He was making conversation. I ship movie Ellie with book Ellie. Alan. Nah, I will always love my movie idiots. Always. It's a small carnivore that hunted in packs, like Deinonychus, Tim said. That's right. Although Deinonychus is now considered one of the velociraptors, and the evidence for pack hunting is all circumstantial. It derives in a part from the appearance of the animals, which are quick and strong, but small for dinosaurs, just 150 to 300 pounds each. We assume that... Ow. That was sharp. We assume they hunted in groups if they were to bring down larger prey. And there's some of the fossil finds in which a single large prey animal is associated with several raptor skeletons, suggesting they hunted in packs. And of course, raptors were large-brained, more intelligent than most dinosaurs. How intelligent is that? Malcolm asked. Depends on who you talk to, Grant said. Just as paleontologists have come around to the idea that dinosaurs were probably warm-blooded, a lot of us are starting to think some of them might have been quite intelligent too, but nobody knows for sure. Stay the fuck back in there. They left the visitor area behind, and soon they heard the loud hum of generators, smelled the faint odour of gasoline. They passed a grove of palm trees and saw a large, low concrete shed with a steel roof. The noise seemed to come from there. They looked in the shed. Must be a generator, Ellie said. It's big, Grant said, peering inside. The power plant actually extended 2 stories below the ground level, a vast complex of whirring turbines and piping that ran down to the earth. Lit by large electric bulbs. They can't need all of this for the resort. I'm surprised what will be helped later. Games, maybe. They're generating enough power for a small city. Maybe for the computers. Maybe. Grant heard bleating and walked north a few yards. He came to an animal enclosure with goats. By a quick count, he counted there were an estimate of 50 or 60 goats. What's that for? Ellie asked. Beats me. Probably they feed them to the dinosaurs, Malcolm said. Power doesn't need fixing in the book. Oh, it does. But this shed, I don't know if this is the shed. Because there's like multiple power sheds. They're all by the raptors, but there is a few. But also in the Telltale game, they do go underground. Everyone fucking goes underground. Such a shit game. Such a shit game. Oh god, this is what I get for doing work from 10 a.m. Fucking oh. Oh god. They probably walked on. The group walked on, followed a dirt path through a dense bamboo grove. At the far side, they came to a double-layered chain-link fence, 12 feet high, with spirals of barbed wire at the top. There was an electric hammer on the outer fence. Beyond the fences, Grant saw a dense clusters of large ferns, 5 feet high. He heard a snorting sound, some kind of snuffing, then the sound of crunching footsteps coming closer. Then a long silence. I don't see anything, Tim whispered finally. Shh! Grant waited. Several seconds passed, flies buzzed in the air, he still saw nothing. Eddie tapped him on the shoulder and pointed. Amid the ferns, Grant saw the head of an animal. It was motionless, partially hidden in the fronds, 2 large dark eyes watching them coldly. The head was 2 feet long. From a pointed snout, a long row of teeth ran back to the whole of the auditory meatus, what a phrase, which served as an ear. The head reminded him of a large lizard or perhaps a crocodile. The eyes did not blink, and the animal did not move. Its skin was leathery, with a pebbled texture, and basically the same coloration as the infant's, yellow-brown with dark reddish markings, like the stripes of a tiger. And we only got them in the second movie. As Grant watched, a single forelimb reached up very slowly to part the ferns beside the animal's face. The limb, Grant saw, was strongly muscled. The hand had 3 grasping fingers, each ending in curved claws. The hand gently, slowly pushed aside the ferns. Grant felt a chill and thought, he's hunting us. For a mammal like man, there was something indescribably alien about the way reptiles hunted their prey. No wonder men hated reptiles. The stillness, the coldness, the pace was all wrong. To be among alligators and other large reptiles was to be reminded of how different kind of life, a different kind of world, now vanished from the earth. Of course, this animal didn't realize that it had been spotted, that the attack came suddenly, from the left and the right. So if you remember the movie, that's exactly what Alan says will happen. Charging raptors covered the 10 yards to the fence with shocking speed. Grant had a blurred impression of powerful 6-foot-tall bodies, stiff balancing tails, limbs with curving claws, open jaws with rows of jagged teeth. The animals snarled as they came forward, and they leapt bodily into the air, raising their hind legs with their big dagger claws. Then they struck the fence in front of them, throwing off twin bursts of hot sparks. The velociraptors fell backward to the ground, hissing. The visitors all moved forward, fascinated. Only then did the third animal attack, leaping up to strike the fence at chest level. Tim screamed in fright as the sparks exploded around him. The creature snarled, a low reptilian hissing sound, and leapt back among the ferns, and they were gone, leaving behind a faint odour of decay and hanging acrid smoke. Holy shit, Tim said. It was so fast, Ellie said. Pack hunters, Grant said, shaking his head. Pack hunters for whom ambush is an instinct. Fascinating. I wouldn't call them tremendously intelligent, Malcolm said. On the other side of the fence, they heard snorting in the palm trees. Several heads poked out of the foliage. Grant counted 3, 4, 5. The animals watched them, staring coldly. A man in black coveralls came running up to them. Are you all right? We're okay, Grant said. The alarms were set off. The man looked at the fence, dented and charred. They attacked you? 3 of them did, yes. The black man nodded. They do this all the time. Hit the fence, take a shock, they never seem to mind. Not too smart, are they, Malcolm said. The black man paused. He squinted at Malcolm in the afternoon light. Be glad for that fence, senor, he said, and turned away. From beginning to end, the entire attack could not have taken more than 6 seconds. Grant was still trying to organize his impressions. The speed was astonishing. The animals were so fast he had hardly seen them move. Walking back, Malcolm said, They are remarkably fast. Yes, Grant said. Much faster than any living reptile. A bull alligator can move quickly, but only short distances, 5 or 6 feet. Big lizards, like 5-foot Komodo dragons of Indonesia, have been clocked at 30 miles an hour, fast enough to run down a man. And they kill men all the time. But I'd guess the animal behind fences was more than twice that speed. Cheetah speed, Malcolm said. 60, 70 miles an hour. Exactly. But they seem to dart forward, Malcolm said, rather like birds. Yes. In the contemporary world, only very small mammals, like cobra-fighting mongoose, had such quick responses. Small mammals, and of course birds, the snake-hunting secretary bird of Africa, or the cassowary, big bitch. In fact, the velociraptor conveyed precisely the same impressions of a deadly swift menace Grant had seen in the cassowary, the clawed ostrich-like bird of New Guinea. New Guinea? It is Guinea. Is it New Guinea? It's like Guinea. New Guinea? New Guinea. Cause it's like guinea pig, isn't it? New Guinea. New Guinea. I fucking don't know. Guinea. It is Guinea. So it's like, yeah. Yeah. Let's go with that. So these velociraptors look like reptiles with the skin and general appearance of reptiles, but they move like birds with the speed and predatory intelligence of birds. Is that about it? Malcolm said. Yes, Grant said. I'd say they display a mixture of the traits. Does that surprise you? Not really, Grant said. It's actually rather close to what paleontologists believed a long time ago. When the first giant's bones were found in the 1820s and 1830s, scientists felt obliged to explain the bones belonged to some oversized variant of modern species. This was because it was believed that no species could ever become extinct, since God would not allow one of his creations to die. Eventually it became clear that this conception of God was mistaken, and bones belonged to extinct animals. But what kind of animals? In 1842, Richard Owen, the leading British anatomist of the day, called them Dinosauria, meaning terrible lizards. Owen recognized that dinosaurs seemed to combine traits of lizards, crocodiles, and birds. In particular, dinosaurs' hips were bird-like, not lizard-like, and unlike lizards, many dinosaurs seemed to stand upright. Owen imagined dinosaurs to be quick-moving, active creatures, and his view was accepted for the next 40 years. But when the truly gigantic finds were unearthed, animals that had weighed 100 tons in life, scientists began to envision the dinosaurs as stupid, slow-moving giants destined for extinction. The image of a sluggish reptile gradually predetermined over the image of the quick-moving bird. In the recent years, scientists like Grant had begun to swing back toward the idea of more active dinosaurs. Grant's colleagues saw him as a radical in his conception of dinosaur behaviour. But now he had to admit his own conception had fallen short of the reality of these large, incredibly swift hunters. Actually, what I was driving at, Malcolm said, was this. Is it a persuasive animal to you? Is it in fact a dinosaur? I'd say so, yes. And the coordinated attack behaviour. To be expected, Grant said. According to the fossil record, packs of velociraptors were capable of bringing down animals that weighed 1,000 pounds, like Tenonontosaurus, which could run as fast as a horse. Coordination would be required. How do they do that without language? Oh, language isn't necessary for coordinated hunting, Ellie said. Chimpanzees do it all the time. A group of chimps will stalk a monkey and kill it. All communication is by the eyes. And were the dinosaurs in fact attacking us? Yes. They would kill us and eat us if they could, Malcolm said. I think so. The reason I ask, Malcolm said, is that I'm told large predators such as lions and tigers are not born man-eaters. Isn't that true? These animals must learn somewhere along the way that human beings are easy to kill. Only afterward do they become man-killers. Yes, I believe that's true, Grant said. Well, these dinosaurs must be more reluctant than lions and tigers. After all, they come from a time before human beings, or even large mammals, existed at all. God knows what they think when they see us, so I wonder, have they learnt somewhere along the line that humans are easy to kill? The group fell silent as they walked. In that case, I shall be extremely interested to see that control room now. How cold is this tea? Still not terrible. Version 4.4. Was there any problem with the group? Hammond asked. Nope. Those bitches looked at us like stupid bitches for dinner it is. Stupid hoes for dinner. Easy meal. Ready meal. Easy to go. No, Henry Wu said. There was no problem at all. They accepted your explanation? Why shouldn't they, Wu said. It's all quite straightforward in the broad strokes. It's only the details that get sticky. And I want to talk about the details with you today. You can think of it as a matter of aesthetic. John Hammond wrinkled his nose as if he smelled something disagreeable. Aesthetics, he repeated. They were standing in the living room of Hammond's elegant bungalow, set back among palm trees in the northern section of the park. The living room was airy and comfortable, fitted with a half-dozen video monitors showing the animals in the park. The file Wu had bought, stamped Animal Development version 4.4, lay on the coffee table. Hammond was looking at him in a patient, paternal way. Wu, 33 years old, was acutely aware that he had worked for Hammond all his professional life. Hammond had hired him right out of graduate school. Of course, there are practical consequences as well, Wu said. I really think you should consider my recommendations for Phase 2. We should go to version 4.4. You want to replace all the current stock of animals, Hammond said. Yes, I do. Why? What's wrong with them? Nothing, Wu said, except that they're real dinosaurs. That's what I asked for, Henry, Hammond said, smiling, and that's what you gave me. I know, Wu said, but you see... He paused. How could he explain this to Hammond? Hammond hardly ever visited the island, and it was a peculiar situation that Wu was trying to convey. Right now, as we stand here, almost no one in the world has ever seen an actual dinosaur. Nobody knows what they're really like. Yes. The dinosaurs we have now are real, Wu said, pointing to the screens around the room. But in a certain way, they are unsatisfactory, unconvincing. I could make them better. Better in what way? For one thing, they move too fast. People aren't accustomed to seeing large animals that are so quick. I'm afraid the visitors will think the dinosaurs look speeded up, like film running too fast. But Henry, these are real dinosaurs. You said so yourself. I know, but we could easily breed slower, more domesticated dinosaurs. Domesticated dinosaurs, Hammond snorted. Nobody wants domesticated dinosaurs, Henry. They want real things. But that's my point, Wu said. I don't think they do. They want to see their expectation, which is quite different. Hammond was frowning. You said yourself, John, this park is entertainment, Wu said, and entertainment has nothing to do with reality. Entertainment is it's just shit. Anyway, Hammond sighed. Now, Henry, are we going to have another one of those absurd abstract discussions? You know I like to keep it simple. The dinosaurs we have now are real, and, well, not exactly. Wu said. He paced the living room, pointing to the monitor. I don't think we should kid ourselves. We haven't recreated the past here. The past is gone. It can never be recreated. What we have done is reconstruct the past, at least a version of the past. And I'm saying we can make a better version. Better than real? Why not? After all, these animals are already modified. We've inserted genes to make them patternable. It's not my day for reading. This is fucking books. Patternable, and to make them lysine dependent. And we've done everything we can to promote growth and accelerate development into adulthood. Hammond shrugged. That was inevitable. We didn't want to wait. We have investors to consider. Of course, but I'm just saying, why stop there? Why not push ahead to make exactly the kind of dinosaur that we'd like to see? One that is acceptable to visitors and one that is easier for us to handle. A slower, more docile version for our park. Hammond frowned. But then the dinosaurs wouldn't be real. But they're not real now, Wu said. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There isn't any reality here, he shrugged, helplessly. He could see that he wasn't getting through. Hammond had never been interested in technical details, and the essence of the argument was technical. How could he explain to Hammond about the reality of DNA dropouts, the patches, the gaps in the sequence that Wu had been obliged to fill in, making the best guesses he could, but still making guesses? The DNA of the dinosaurs were like old photographs that had been retouched, basically the same as the original, but in some places repaired and clarified as a result. Now, Henry, Hammond said, putting his arm around Wu's shoulders, if you don't mind me saying so, I think you're getting cold feet. You've been working very hard for a long time and you've done a hell of a job. A hell of a job. And it's finally time to reveal to some people what you've done. It's natural to be a little nervous. I, too, have some doubts. But I'm convinced, Henry, that the world will be entirely satisfied. Entirely satisfied. As he spoke, Hammond steered him towards the door. But John, remember back in 87 when we started to build the containment devices? We didn't have any full-grown adults yet, so we had to predict what we would need. We ordered a big taser shockers, cars with cattle prods mounted on them, guns that blow out electrical nets, all built specifically to our specifications. We got a whole array of new devices, and they're all too slow. We've got to make some adjustments. You know that Muldoon wants military equipment, law missiles and laser-guided devices. Let's leave Muldoon out of this, Hammond said. I'm not worried. It's just a zoo, Henry. The phone rang and Hammond went to answer him. Wu tried to think of another way to press his case, but the fact was that after 5 long years, Jurassic Park was nearing completion. John Hammond just wasn't listening to him anymore. There had been a time where Hammond listened to Wu very attentively, especially when he had first recruited him, back in the days when Henry Wu was a 28-year-old graduate student getting his doctorate at Stanford in Norman Athens' lab. Athens' death had thrown the lab into confusion as well as mourning. No one knew what would happen to funding or doctoral programs. There was a lot of uncertainty. People worried about their careers. 2 weeks after the funeral, John Hammond came to see Wu. Everyone in the lab knew that Athon had some association with Hammond, although the details were never clear, but Hammond had approached Wu with directness Wu never forgot. Norman already said you're the best geneticist in his lab, he said. What are your plans now? I don't know. Research? Do you think if the lions got out of the zoo, they'd eat us? 50-50. 50-50. I think maybe. I feel like shits and giggles. I guess it depends, ain't it? Lions are quite docile and, again, kind of used to people. Not fully, but 50-50. I wish I could experiment with that. Yeah, just let one loose one day on some people. You want a university appointment? Yes, that's a mistake, Hammond said briskly. At least, if you respect your talent. Wood blinked. Why? Because let's face facts, Hammond said. Universities are no longer the intellectual centres of the country. The very idea is preposterous. Universities are the backwater. Don't look so surprised. I'm not saying anything you don't know. Since World War II, all the really important discoveries have come out of private laboratories. The laser, the transistor, the polio vaccine, the microchip, the hologram, the personal computer, magnetic resonance imaging, CAT scans, the list goes on and on. Universities simply aren't where it's happening anymore, and they haven't been for 40 years. If you want to do something important in computers or genetics, you don't need to go to university. Dear me, no. Wu found he was speechless. Good heavens, Hammond said. What must you go through to start a new project? How many grant applications? How many forms? How many approvals? The steering committee? The department chairman? The university resources committee? How'd you get more workspace if you need it? More assistants if you need them? How long does it all take? A brilliant man can't squander precious time with forms and committees. Life's too short and DNA's too long. You want to make your mark. If you want to get something done, stay out of universities. I'm talking about work. Real accomplishments. What does a scientist need to work? He needs time, he needs money. And I'm talking about giving you a 5-year commitment. $10 million a year in funding. $50 million, and no one tells you how to spend it. You decide, everyone else just gets out of your way. It sounded too good to be true. Wu stayed silent for a long time. Finally, he said, in return for what? For taking a crack at the impossible, Hammond said. For trying something that probably can't be done. What does it involve? I can't give the details, but the general area involves cloning reptiles. I don't think that's impossible, Wu said. Reptiles are easier than mammals. Cloning probably only 10-15 years off, assuming some fundamental advances. I've got 5 years, Hammond said, and a lot of money for someone who wants to take a crack at it now. Is my work publishable? Eventually. Not immediately. No. But eventually publishable, Wu said, sticking to the point. Hammond laughed. Don't worry. If you succeed, the whole world will know what you've done. I promise you. And now it seemed the whole world would indeed know, Wu thought. After 5 years of extraordinary effort, they were just a year away from opening the park to the public. Of course, those years hadn't gone exactly as Hammond had promised. Wu had had people telling him what to do, and many times fearsome pressures were placed on him. And the work itself had shifted. It wasn't even reptilian cloning. Once they began to understand that dinosaurs were so similar to birds, it was avian cloning, a very different proposition, much more difficult. And for the last 2 years, Wu had been primarily an administrator, surveying teams of researchers and banks of computer-operated gene sequences. Administration wasn't the kind of work he relished. It wasn't what he'd bargained for. Still, he had succeeded. He had done what nobody really believed could be done, at least in the short time. And Henry Wu thought he should have rights, some rights. some say in what happened by virtue of his expertise, his efforts, of his efforts. Instead, he found his influence waning with each passing day. The dinosaurs existed, the procedures for obtaining them were worked out to the point of being routine, the technologies were mature, and John Hammond didn't need Henry Wu anymore. That should be fine, Hammond said, speaking into the phone. He listened for a while and smiled at Wu. Fine, yes, fine. He hung up. Where were we, Henry? We were talking about Phase 2, Wu said. Oh, yes. We've gone over some of this before, Henry. I know, but you don't realise... Excuse me, Henry. Hammond said with an edge of impatience in his voice. I do realise, and I must tell you frankly, Henry, I see no reason to improve upon reality. Every change we made in the genome has been forced on us by law or necessity. We may make other changes in the future to resist disease or for other reasons, but I don't think we should improve upon reality just because we think it's the better way. We have real dinosaurs out there now. That's what people want to see. That's what they should see. That's our obligation, Henry. That's honest, Henry. And smiling, Hammond opened the door for him to leave. I'm going to go grab another drink because that tea's doing absolutely nothing for my throat. And my fuck, it hurts so bad fucking reading a book for, fucking already nearly 2 hours on. So I'm going to go grab a cold drink and hope that that helps in some way. I'm going to put it in the really shitty mug. So I shall return. No deaths, no nothing. Goodbye. Be hopefully, drinks help. Control. Grant looked at the computer monitors in the... It's not what I was expecting as soon as I started reading. Not the dance thing. I had to. I'm sure you haven't. Yeah, he's been there for a good while. You just haven't used it in a while. I have dinosaur sounds too. Hopefully that did play. Otherwise, God, that would be kind of shit. Yeah, I've had that one for a bit. You know? Anyway, Grant didn't like computers. He knew that this made him old-fashioned, dated as a researcher, but he didn't care. Some of the kids who worked for him had a real feeling for computers, an intuition. Grant never felt that he found computers to be alien, mystifying machines. Even the fundamental distinction between an operating system and an application left him confused and disheartened. Literally lost in a foreign geography he didn't begin to comprehend. He noticed that Gennaro was perfectly comfortable, and Malcolm seemed to be in his element, making little sniffing sounds, like a bloodhound on a trail. "You want to know about cool mechanisms?" John Arnold said, turning in his chair to the control room. The head engineer was a thin, tense, chain-smoking man of 45. He squinted at the others in the room. "We have unbelievable control mechanisms," Arnold said, and lit another cigarette. "For example," Gennaro said. "For example, animal tracking." Arnold pressed a button on his console, and the vertical glass map lit up with a pattern of jagged blue lines. "That's our juvenile T-Rex, the little Rex. All his movements within the park over the last 24 hours. Arnold pressed the button again. Previous 24 hours, and again. Previous 24 hours. The lines on the map became densely overlaid, a child's scribble, but the scribbles were localized in a single area, near the southeast side of the lagoon. "You get a sense of his home range over time," Arnold said. "He's young, so he stays close to water, and he stays away from the big adult Rex. You put the big Rex and the little Rex, and you'll see their paths never cross." "Where is the big Rex now?" Gennaro asked. Arnold pushed another button. The map cleared, and a single glowing spot with a code number appeared in the fields, northwest of the lagoon. "He's right there." "And the little Rex?" "Hell, I'll show you every animal in the park," Arnold said. The map began to light up like a Christmas tree, dozens of spots of lights, each tagged with a code number. "That's 238 animals at this minute. Seems like a bad idea to put 2 in one cage." Yeah, definitely. There's so many cages, not like any giant areas. "How accurate?" "Within 5 feet. Arnold puffed on a cigarette. "Let's put it this way. You drive out in a vehicle and you'll find the animals right there, exactly as they're shown on the map." "How often is it updated?" "Every 30 seconds. "Pretty impressive," Gennaro said. "How is it done?" "We have motion sensors all around the park," Arnold said. "Most of them hardwired, some radio telemetered. Of course, motion sensors won't usually tell you the species, but we've got image recognition direct off the video. Even when we're not watching the video monitors, the computer is, and checking where everybody is." "Does the computer ever make a mistake?" "Only with the babies. It mixes those up sometimes because they're small images. But we don't sweat it. The babies almost usually stay close to a herd of adults." "Also, you have the category tally." "What's that?" "Once every 15 minutes, the computer tallies the animals in all categories. Like this. And then it's got Tyrannosaurus, 2, Myosaurus, Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Compies, Othnielia, Velociraptors, Apatosaurus, Hadrosaurs, Dilophosauruses, Pterosaurs, the little tiny bastards, Eucalyptids in the sense of like bumpy, Strachosauruses, and Microceratops, which you don't see fucking ever, which is stupid. "What you see here," Arnold said, "is an entirely separate counting procedure. This isn't based on tracking data, it's a fresh look. The whole idea is that the computer can't make a mistake because it compares 2 different ways of gathering the data. If an animal missing, we'd know within 5 minutes." "I see, and has this ever been actually tested?" "Well, in a way. Arnold said. We've had a few animals die. Othnielian, sure, got caught in the branches of a tree and strangled. One of the stegos died of an intestinal illness that kept bothering them. One of the hypsilophodonts fell and broke his neck. And in each case, once the animal stopped moving, the numbers stopped tallying and the computer signaled an alert within 5 minutes. Yes. What is the right-hand column? Release versions of the animals. The most recent are version 4.1 and 4.3. We're considering going to 4.4. Version numbers? You mean like software? New releases? Could you like not? Well, yes, Arnold said. It is like software in a way, as we discover the glitches in the DNA. Dr. Wu's lab has to make a new version. Orcs. Yeah, I don't have headphones on. I can hear every fucking thing. Which I noticed now the rain stopped because I went, obviously, BRB. The idea of living creatures being numbered like software, being subject to updates and revisions, troubled Grant. He could not exactly see why. It was too new a thought, but he was instinctively uneasy about it. There were, after all, living creatures. Arnold must have noticed his expression because he said, "Look, Dr. Grant, there's no point getting starry-eyed about these animals. It's important for everyone to remember that these animals are created by man. Sometimes there are bugs, so as we discover bugs, Dr. Wu's lab have to make a new version, and we need to keep track of what version we have out there." Yes, of course you do, Malcolm said impatiently. But going back to the matter of counting, I take it all the counts are based on motion sensors. Yes, and there are sensors everywhere in the park. They cover 92% of the land area, Arnold said. There are only a few places we can't use them. For example, we can't use them on the Jungle River because the movement of the water and the convection rising from the surfaces screws up the sensors. But we have them nearly everywhere else. And if the computer tracks an animal into an uncensored zone, it will remember and look for the animal to come out again. And if it doesn't, it gives us an alarm. Now then, Malcolm said, you show 49 compies. So suppose I said that some aren't really the correct species. How would you show me that I'm wrong? 2 ways, Arnold said. First of all, I can track individual movements against the other presumed compies. Compies are social animals. They move in a group. We have 2 compy groups in the park, so the individuals should be within Group A or Group B. Yes, but the other way is a direct visual, he said. He punched buttons, and on one of the monitors began to rapidly flicker through the images of compies numbered 1 to 49. These pictures are current ID images from within the last 5 minutes. So you can see all the animals if you want to. Yes, I can visually review all the animals whenever I want. How about physical containment? Gennaro said. Can they get out of their enclosures? Absolutely not, Arnold said. These are expensive animals, Mr. Gennaro. We take very good care of them. We maintain multiple barriers. First, the moats. He pressed a button, and the board lit up with a network of orange bars. These moats are never less than 12 feet deep. We can all remember this. And water filled. For bigger animals, the moats may be 30 feet deep, next to the electrified fences. Lines of bright red glowed on the board. We have 50 miles of 12-foot-long high fencing, including 22 miles around the perimeter of the island. All the park's fences carry 10,000 volts. The animals quickly learn not to go near them. Why is it as soon as I leave the room, my head starts pounding? Maybe this won't be a long one. Maybe I will have to do a 4th. But if one outside, legit, as soon as I've walked out, sharp pain right here. But I haven't had it the entire time. You know? Section 4 seems a good goal. Oh yeah, I mean, at this rate, yeah, section 4, that's what's left of this one. So it might be that I think this is why I wanted to do like certain bits after streams and stuff like at the end, so then I could do the whole book the whole month instead of doing it this way. But this is what people wanted, and all that's left is 1. So I mean, it kind of works, I guess. Either way, some things work. Where was I? Yes. I mean, I know you are. I'm just saying. Like, the plan was obviously, to do bits and bobs, some after each stream for a bit, and then it was, oh, we should do it longer. And I was like, okay. And this is what happens when it's longer. Who cares? Me, when I could have just read this to you, fucking we're in the same house. I'm agreeing to do things for people. And then it's like, okay. There are some things, some things can change. Some things are nice. I'll kill them. Maybe you can't even kill a bug. And ban them all. Waz comes back, he's banned. Just hypothetically, Gennaro said, supposing it happened. Muldoon cleared his throat. We'd go out and get the animal back, he said. We have lots of ways to do that. Taser shotguns, electrified nets, tranquilizers, all non-lethal because, as Mr. Sano said, they're expensive animals. Gennaro nodded. And if one got off the island, it'd die in less than 24 hours, Arnold said. These are genetically engineered animals that are unable to survive in the real world. I need a 50,000 word essay on why he didn't attend today. Yeah, we'll ask him for one. We'll be like, you need to give us a reason. It's fine. They'll probably get a 4th stream out of it anyway. I just not play Disney. Well, you never know. Might be tomorrow if fucking Baldur's Gate doesn't work. Because me and Waz were discussing, if it still doesn't work, we put it on hold until I can get it to work, instead of like guessing each week. So you never know. We might be back tomorrow with it. Could happen either way. Probably should have just done some more on Tuesday, but if not, I want 500 lines on I was a bad mod. Terrible. But yeah, maybe I probably should have done some Tuesday, but Tuesday just fucking put me in a rut. Yes. How about this control system itself? Gennaro said. Could anybody tamper with it? Arnold was shaking his head. The system is hard and the computer is independent in every way. Independent power and independent backup power. The system does not communicate with the outside world, so it cannot be influenced remotely by modem. The computer system is secure. There was a pause. Arnold puffed his cigarette. Hell of a system, he said. Hell of a goddamn system. And I guess, Malcolm said, your system works so well, you don't have any problems. We've got endless problems here, Arnold said, raising an eyebrow. But none of the things you worry about. I gather you're worried about the animals will escape, and we will get to the mainland and raise hell. We haven't got any concern about that at all. We see the animals as fragile and delicate. They've been brought back after 65 million years to a world that's very different. It isn't. No, Ed's not in the movie. Quite a lot, quite a few of the extras aren't. Like, a lot of the names the extra mentioned. No, Ed's not. I can't remember if they say it in the book. I think it's in the visual book I've got, the script book, that they mention that basically, with how many names you end up getting in this book, there's only so much you can add. I might grab it in a bit and see if it actually says about it. It's very different from the one they left. The one they were adapted to. We'll have a hell of a time caring for them. You have to realise, Arnold continued, that men have been keeping mammals and reptiles in zoos for hundreds of years. So we know a lot about how to take care of an elephant or a croc, but nobody has ever tried to take care of a dinosaur before. They are new animals. And we just don't know. Diseases in our animals are the biggest concern. Diseases? Gennaro said, something alarmed. Is there any way that a visitor could get sick? Arnold snorted again. Would you ever catch a cold from a zoo alligator, Mr. Gennaro? Zoos don't worry about that, neither do we. What we do worry about is the animals dying from their own illnesses or infecting other animals. But we have programs to monitor that too. You want to see the Big Rex's health file? His vaccination record? His dental record? That's something. You ought to see the vet scrubbing those big fangs so he doesn't get tooth decay. Not just now, Gennaro said. What about your mechanical systems? You mean the rides? Arnold said. Grant looked sharply. Rides? None of the rides are running yet, Arnold was saying. We have the Jungle River ride, where the boats follow tracks underwater, and we have the Avery Lodge ride, but none of it's operational. The park will open with the basic dinosaur tour, the one you're about to take in a few minutes. The other rides will come online 6 to 12 months after that. Wait a minute, you're going to have rides? Like an amusement park. Arnold said, "This is a zoological park. We have tours of different areas. We call them rides. That's all." Grant frowned. Again, he felt troubled. There is an actual fucking ride on this park, should I add. There is a full-on fucking roller coaster. He didn't like the idea of dinosaurs being used for an amusement park. Malcolm continued his questions. "You can run the whole park from this control room?" "I would like to see the vet scrubbing the T-Rex, please, actually. Yes, I would like to see what they do." "Yes," Arnold said. "I could run it single-handedly if I have to. We've got that much automation built in. The computer by itself can track the animals, feed them, and fill their water troughs for 48 hours, without supervision." "This is the system Mr. Nedry designed?" Malcolm asked. Dennis Nedry was sitting at the terminal in the far corner of the room, eating a candy bar and typing. "Yes, that's right," Nedry said, not looking up from the keyboard. "It's a hell of a system," Arnold said proudly. "That's right," Nedry said absently. "Just 1 or 2 minor bugs to fix." "Now," Arnold said, "I see the tour is starting, so unless you have other questions—" "Actually, just one," Malcolm said. "Just a research question. You showed us that you can track the compies and you visually display them individually. Can you do any studies of them as a group? Measure them or whatever if you want to know height or weight." Or Arnold was pushing buttons. Another screen came up with another fucking graph. "Look at that. Anyway, we can do all of that very quickly," Arnold said. "The computer takes measurement data in the course of the reading, the video screens. So it is translatable at once. You see here we have a normal fossil. I also have graph again. Oh yeah, I hope so. I mean, if you've just got a fucking copy of the book would come with the graph. I'd be really worried if it didn't. Distribution for the animal population. It shows most animals cluster around an average central value, and a few are either larger or smaller than the average, and the tail set the curve." "You'd expect that kind of graph," Malcolm said. "Yes, a healthy biological population shows this kind of distribution. Now then," Arnold said, lighting another cigarette, "are there any other questions?" "No," Malcolm said. "I've learned what I need to know." As they were walking out, Gennaro said, "It looks like a pretty good system to me. I don't see how I don't see how any animals could get off the island." "Don't you?" Malcolm said. "I thought it was completely obvious." "Wait a minute," Gennaro said. "You think the animals have gone out?" "I know they have." Gennaro said, "But how? You saw for yourself. They count all the animals. They can look at all the animals. They know where all the animals are at all times. How can it possibly escape?" "It's quite obvious," he said. "It's just a matter of your assumptions." "Your assumptions?" Gennaro repeated, frowning. "Yes," Malcolm said. "Look here. The basic event that has occurred in Jurassic Park is that the scientists and technicians have tried to make a new, complete biological world, and the scientists in the control room expect to see a natural world. As in the graph that just showed us, even though a moment's thought revels that the nice normal distribution is terribly worrisome on the island." "It is?" "Yes. Based on what Dr. Wu told us earlier, one should never see a population graph like that." "Why not?" "Because that is a graph for a normal biological population, which is precisely what Jurassic Park is not. Jurassic Park is not the real world. It is intended to be a controlled world that only imitates the natural world. In a sense, it is a true park, rather like a Japanese formal garden, nature manipulated to be more natural than the real thing, if you will." "I'm afraid you've lost me," Gennaro said, looking annoyed. "I'm sure the tour will make everything clear." The tour. "This way, everybody, this way," Henry just said. By his side, a woman was passing out pith helmets. Yep, this is pith. With Jurassic Park labelled on the headband, with the little blue dinosaur logo. A line of Toyota Land Cruisers. Toyota. Came out of an underground garage beneath the visitor centre. Each car pulled up, driverless and silent. 2 black men in safari uniforms were opening the doors for passengers. 2 to 4 passengers to a car, please. 2 to 4 passengers to a car. This book reading is brought to you by Toyota Land Cruisers. Yes, and God forbid, never will be Ford. Children under 10 must be accompanied by an adult. 2 to 4 passengers to a car, please. Tim watched as Grant, Sattler, and Malcolm got into the first Land Cruiser with the lawyer Gennaro. Tim looked over at Lex, who was standing, pounding her fist into her glove. Tim pointed at the first car. "Can I go with them?" I'm afraid they have things to discuss, Ed Regis said. Technical things. I'm interested in technical things, Tim said. I'd rather go with them. Well, you'll be able to hear what they're saying. We'll have a radio open between cars. The second car came, and Tim and Lex got in, and Ed Regis followed. These are electric cars, Regis said, guided by cable in the roadway. Tim was glad he was sitting in the front seat, because mounted on the dashboard were 2 computer screens and a box that looked like a CD-ROM. There was a LaserDisc player controlled by a computer. There were also a portable walkie-talkie and some kind of radio transmitter. There were 2 antennas on the roof and some old goggles in the map pocket. The black men shut the doors of the Land Cruiser. The car started with an electric hum. Up ahead, the 3 scientists and Gennaro were talking pointedly, clearly excited. Ed Regis said, "Let's hear what they're saying." An intercom cleared. "I don't know what the hell you think you're doing here," Gennaro said over the intercom. He sounded very angry. "I know quite well why I'm here," Malcolm said. "You're here to advise me not play goddamn mind games. I've got 5% of this company and a responsibility to make sure that Hammond has done his job responsibly. Now you're goddamn come here." Ed Regis pressed the intercom button and said, "In keeping with the non-polluting policies of Jurassic Park, these lightweight electric Land Cruisers have been specially built for us by Toyota in Osaka? Sure. Eventually, we hope to drive among the animals, just as they do in African game parks. But for now, sit back and enjoy the self-guided tour." He paused. "And by the way, we can hear you back here." "Oh Christ," Gennaro said. "I have to be able to speak freely. I didn't ask for those damn kids to come." Ed Regis smiled blandly and pushed a button. "We'll just begin the show, shall we?" So as you can see as well, no Ed, because he then gets replaced by an automated voice. I will have to see why they said no to it. Pretty sure it's just because there's too many bitches. They heard a fanfare of trumpets and the interior screams flash, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." As Sonar, okay, here's the rest of it. Here's the replacement voice. Sonorous voice said, "Welcome to Jurassic Park. You are now entering the lost world of the prehistoric past, a world of mighty creatures long gone from the Earth, which you are privileged to see for the first time." That's Richard Keeley. Ed Regis said, "We spared no expense." Hammond never fucking says it. The Land Cruiser passed through a grove of low, stumpy palm trees. Richard Keeley was saying, "Notice, first of all, the remarkable plant life that surrounds you. Those trees to your left and right are called cycads? I never remember how that one's pronounced. We'll go with cicads. Cicads? I fucking don't remember. The prehistoric predecessors of palm trees. Cycads were a favourite food of the dinosaurs. But doing a show every time that Hammond says that is 10 out of 10. Yeah, but it was never Hammond first, because you think we're this far in, and that's the first time it's mentioned. Because Hammond doesn't give a fuck. You will also see Benetti Italians and ginkgos. The world of the dinosaur included more modern plants such as pine and fir trees and swamp cypresses. We'll see those as well. The Land Cruiser moved slowly among the foliage. Tim noticed the fences and retaining walls were screened by greenery to heighten the illusion of moving through a real jungle. "We imagine the world of dinosaurs," said Richard's voice, "as a world of huge vegetarians eating their way through the giant swampy forest of the Jurassic and Cretaceous world 100 million years ago. But most dinosaurs were not as large as people think. The smallest dinosaurs were no bigger than a house cat, and the average dinosaur was as big as a pony. We are going to first visit one of the average-sized animals called Hypsilophodonts, whatever the fuck they were. If you look to your left, you may catch a glimpse of them." That's the other thing. Dilos. I'm pretty sure there is none. There's that graph. No, there is some. Fuck. What was it? The movie. That's right. It was Richard in the movie too. They replaced the hypsilophodonts with the Dilophosaurs because they didn't want any more fucking herbivores. That was it. So they are in this book, but they're not really mentioned. So yeah, in the first movie, the first thing you see is Dilos that you don't see because they didn't want any more fucking herbivores. They wanted to be like, ooh, surprise, carnivores. Anyway, They all looked left. The Land Cruiser stopped on a low rise where a break in the foliage provided a view to the east. They could see a sloping forest area which opened into a field of yellow grass that was about 3 feet high. There were no dinosaurs. Where are they? Lex said. Tim looked at the dashboard. The transmitter lights blinked and the CD-ROM whirred. Obviously the disc was being accessed by some automatic system. He guessed the same motion sensors that tracked the animals also controlled the screens in the Land Cruiser. The screens now showed pictures of the little bastards and printed out the data about them. The voice said, "The little bastards are the gazelles of the dinosaur world. Small, quick animals that once roamed everywhere in the world, from England to Central Asia to North America. We think these dinosaurs were so successful because they had better jaws and teeth for chewing plants than their contemporaries did. In the fact, the name little bastard means high-ridged tooth." The little bastard. Just easy to fucking you drawing that shit. Fucking. It's just easier sometimes to name them what you want to name them. You can see them in the plains directly ahead, and also perhaps in the branches of the trees. In the trees, Lex said. Dinosaurs in the trees. Tim was scanning with binoculars too. To the right, he said, halfway up the big green trunk, in the dappled shadows of the tree, a motionless dark green animal about the size of a baboon stood on a branch. It looked like a lizard standing on its hind legs. It balanced itself with a long, drooping tail. "That's an othnielia," Tim said. "The small animals you can see are called an othnielia," the voice said, in honor of the 19th century dinosaur hunter Othniel Marsh of Yale. What a fucking great name. Tim spotted 2 more animals on higher branches on the same tree. They were all about the same size. None of them were moving. "Pretty boring," Lex said. "They're not doing anything." "Their main herd of animals can be found in the grassy plain below you," said the voice. "We can ruse them with a simple mating call." A loudspeaker by the fence gave a long nasal call like a honking geese. From the field of grass directly to the left, 6 lizard heads poked one after the other. The effect was comical, and Tim laughed. The heads disappeared, the loudspeaker gave the calls again, and once again the heads poked up in exactly the same way, one after the other. Othniel as a name. Yeah, I would say it's Othniel, ain't it? That seems like right. Anyway. "The little bastards are not especially bright animals," the voice explained. "They have roughly the intelligence of a domestic cow." Their heads were dull green, with a molting dark browns and blacks that extended down the slender necks. Judging from the size of their heads, Tim guessed their bodies were 4 feet long, about as large as a deer. Some of the little bastards were chewing. I really should be allowed to do an audiobook, but just changed my names when I want to. Judging, where are we? One reached up and scratched its head with a 5-fingered hand. The gesture gave the creature a pensive, thoughtful quality. Jesus, kids, don't actually do it. Starting the petition now. God, it's fucking hurts. If you see them scratching, that's because they have skin problems. The veterinary scientists here at Jurassic Park think it may be all the fungus or an allergy, but they're not sure yet. After all, these are the first dinosaurs in history to ever be started alive. The electric motor of the car started, and there was a grinding of gears. And the unexpected sound, the herd of little bastards suddenly leapt into the air and bounded above the grass like kangaroos, showing their full bodies with massive hind limbs and long tails in the afternoon sunlight. In a few leaps, they were gone. Now that we've had a look at these fascination herbivores, we should go on to the dinosaurs a little larger. Quite a bit larger, in fact. The Land Cruisers continued onward, moving south through Jurassic Park. Do you have a picture of these little guys? The ones I showed you earlier. Little bastards. Yeah, they're the same. Little bastards are these fuckers. Little bastards. Oh, I accidentally put that back in 5th. Where's 4th? Jesus, yeah, just 4 and 3 and 4 is just like so big. "Gears are grinding," John Arnold said in the darkened control room. "Have maintenance check the electric clutches on vehicles BB4 and BB5 when they come back." "Yes, Mr. Arnold," replied the voice on the intercom. A minor detail, Hammond said, walking into the room. Looking out, I could see 2 Land Cruisers moving south through the park. Muldoon stood in the corner, silently watching. Arnold pushed his chair back from the central console at the control panel. There are no minor details, Mr. Hammond, he said, and he lit another cigarette. Nervous at most times. Arnold was especially edgy now. He was only too aware that this was the first time visitors had actually toured the park. In fact, Arnold's team didn't often go into the park. Harding, the vet, sometimes did. The animal handlers went to the individual feeding houses, but otherwise they watched the park from the control room. And now with visitors out there, he was worried about 100 details. John Arnold was a systems engineer who had worked on the Polaris submarine missile in the late 1960s, until he had his first child and the prospect of making weapons became too distasteful. Meanwhile, Disney had started to create amusement parks, park rides of great technological sophistication, and they employed a lot of aerospace people. Arnold helped build Disney's World in Orlando and had gone out to implement major parks at Magic Mountain in California, Old Country in Virginia, and Astro World in Houston. His continuous employment of parks had eventually given him a somewhat skewed view of reality. Arnold contended only half-jokingly that the entire world was increasingly described by the metaphor of a theme park. Paris is a theme park, he had once announced after a vacation, although it's too expensive and the park employees are unpleasant and sullen. For the past 2 years, Arnold's job has been to get Jurassic Park up and running. As an engineer, he was accustomed to long time schedules. He often referred to the September opening, by which he meant September of the following year. And as the September opening approached, he was unhappy with the progress that had been made. He knew from experience it sometimes took years to work out the bugs out of a single park ride, let alone a whole park running properly. You're just a warrior, Hammond said. I don't think so, Arnold said. You've got to realise that from an engineering standpoint, Jurassic Park is by far the most ambitious theme park in history. Visitors will never think about it, but I do. He ticked the points off his fingers. First, Jurassic Park has all the problems of any amusement park: ride maintenance, queue control, transportation, food handling, living accommodations, trash disposal, security. Second, we have all the problems of a major zoo: care of animals, health and welfare, feeding and cleanliness, protection from insects, pests, allergies and illnesses, maintenance of barriers, and all the rest. And finally, we have the unprecedented problems of caring for the population of animals that no one has tried to maintain before. Oh, it's not as bad as all that, Hammond said. Yes, it is. You're just not here to see it, Arnold said. The Tyrannosaurus drink the lagoon water and sometimes get sick. We aren't sure why. The Triceratops females kill each other in fights for dominance and have to be separated into groups of smaller than 6. We don't know why. The Stegosauruses frequently get blisters on their tongues and diarrhea for no reasons yet understands, even though we lost 2. Little bastards get skin rashes. And the velociraptors... Let's not start on the velociraptors, Hammond said. I'm sick of hearing about the velociraptors. How they're the most vicious creature anyone's ever seen. They are, Muldoon said in a low voice. They should all be destroyed. You wanted to fit them with radio collars, Hammond said, and I agreed. Yes, and they promptly chewed the collars off. But even the raptors never got free, Arnold said. I think we have to accept that Jurassic Park is inherently hazardous. Oh, balls, Hammond said. Whose side are you on, anyway? We now have 15 species of extinct animals, and most of them are dangerous, Arnold said. We've been forced to delay the Jungle River ride because of the Dilophosauruses, and the Teratops Lodge in the Aviary because the pterodactyls are so unpredictable. These aren't engineering delays, Mr. Hammond. They're problems with the control of animals. You've had plenty of engineering delays, Hammond said. Don't blame it on the animals. Yes, we have. In fact, it's all we could do to get the main attraction, Park Drive, working correctly, to get the CD-ROMs inside the cars to be controlled by motion sensors. It's taken weeks of adjustments to get them working properly, and now the electric gear shifts of the cars are acting up. The gear shifts. Let's keep it in perspective, Hammond said. You get the engineering correct, and the animals will fall into place. After all, they're trainable. From the beginning, this had been one of the core beliefs of the planners. The animals, however exotic, would fundamentally behave like animals in the zoo anywhere. They would learn the regularities of their care and they would respond. Meanwhile, how's the computer? Hammond said. He glanced at Dennis Nedry, who was working at a terminal in the corner of the room. This damn computer has always been a headache. We're getting there, Nedry said. If you'd done it right in the first place, Hammond began, but Arnold put a restraining hand on his arm. Arnold knew there was no point antagonizing Nedry while he was working. It's a large system. There are bound to be glitches. In fact, the bud list now ran to more than 130 items and included many odd aspects. For example, the animal feeding program reset itself every 12 hours, not every 24 hours, and would not record feedings on Sundays. As a result, the staff could not actually measure how much the animals were eating. The security system, which controlled all of the security card operated doors, cut out whenever main power was lost, and did not come back on with the auxiliary power. The security program only ran with main power. The physical conservation program, intended to dim lights after 10 p.m., only worked on alternate days of the week. The automated fecal analysis, called autopoop, designed to check for parasites in animal stools, invariably recorded all species as having the parasite Phagostomon Venusilum. Yep, although none did. The program then automatically dispensed medication into the animal's food. If the handlers dumped the medicine out of the hoppers to prevent it being dispensed, an alarm would sound which could not be turned off. And so it went on, page after page of errors. When he had arrived, Dennis Nedry had been under the impression that he could make all the fixes himself over the weekend. He had paled when he had seen the full listing. Paled, that's it. Now he was calling his office in Cambridge, telling his staff programmers they were going to have to cancel their weekend plans and work overtime until Monday. And he had told John Arnold that he would need every telephone link between Isle Nublar and the mainland just to transfer program data back and forth to his programmers. One Headley worked. Arnold punched up a new window in his own monitor. It allowed him to see what Nedry was doing at the corner console. Not that he didn't trust Nedry, but Arnold just liked to know what was going on. He looked at the graphics display on his right-hand console, which showed the progress of the electric land cruisers. They were following the river, just north of the Avery and the Ornithischium paddock. More little bastards. So many little bastards. All of them. Ooh. So why does this thing keep flashing at me? Oh, nothing that important. If you look to your left, said the voice, you will see the dome of the Jurassic Park Avery, which is never mentioned in fucking anything ever, except for number 3, which is a whole different island, which is not yet finished for visitors. Tim saw sunlight glinting off the aluminum struts in the distance, and directly below is our Mesozoic jungle river, where, if you're lucky, you just might catch a glimpse of a very rare carnivore. Keep your eyes peeled, everyone. Justice for number 3. No justice for number 3. It's not even a book. Inside the Land Cruiser, the screen showed a bird-like head topped with a flaming red crest, which it didn't fucking have. I fucking love that dancing spider. The car was driving along a high ridge overlooking a fast-moving river below. The river was almost enclosed by dense foliage on both sides. There they are now, said the voice. The animals you see are called Dilophosaurus. Despite what the recording said, Tim only saw one. The Dilophosaur was crouched on its hind legs by the river, drinking. And it was built on the basic carnivore pattern. I just want to keep that there. It was built on the basic carnivore pattern with a heavy tail, strong hind limbs, and a long neck. Its 10-foot-tall body was spotted yellow and black, like a leopard. But it was the head that held Tim's attention. 2 broad curving crests run along the top of its head from the eyes to its nose. The crest met in the centre, making a V shape above the dinosaur's head. The crest had red and black stripes, reminiscent of a parrot or a toucan. The animal gave a soft hooting cry, like an owl. Damn, that's what I should have added. I don't have a Dilo one. That's pretty, Lex said. Dilophosaurus, the tape said, is one of the earliest carnivorous dinosaurs. Scientists thought their jaw muscles were too weak to kill prey, and imagined they were primarily scavengers. But now we know they are poisonous. Wrong. Hey, Tim grinned. All right. Again, the distinctive hooting call of the Dilophosaur drifted across the afternoon air toward them. Lex shifted uneasily in her seat. Are they really poisonous, Mr. Regis? Oh, don't worry about it, Ed said. But are they? Well, yes, Lex. Along with such living reptiles as Gila, were they actually? No. They didn't. I think they didn't spit. They didn't spit at all. And it's 50-50 on if their bite was poisonous. I think most say yes, some say no. But obviously the spitting, I'm pretty sure the spitting and the crest are not a thing. Quite sure on that. I mean, I could be... Things have changed, no offense. The Spino used to be 6 different other dinosaurs, so... anything could happen. I don't trust Wikipedia. But, I guess. The thing about Wikipedia is, it's fucking awful to read. Yeah, so obviously the spitting and the crest were obviously for Jurassic Park, which was a given. What did the Jurassic Park get wrong? Everything. So yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, some state that maybe, just maybe, a bite would do something. You know, in the sense of blah, 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 blah. But basically, they were more like... Why is it never giving me large images? You know when you just, like, want something? More like this. But this, the cresty bit, 50-50. But still similar, but no frills, no nutting, all that jazz. Wait, what does capture cursor? Ooh. So yesy, but no frilly, no nutting. You know, none of this, none of this. Bit more like, yeah, a bit more like this. But also they were... I wonder if it has the picture. Yeah. Why Facebook? Sure. So, Jurassic Park. What the actual fucking one would look like. Now, keep this one in your mind. Because in this book, the babies are just a bit smaller than, I think, this. So just remember this size. Because that, yeah, that is a surprise tool that would help us later. I mean, probably much later. Nervous. It's one of my favourite scenes, and it always will be. Blip, 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 blip. There you go. Yeah, Dilophosaurus secretes the hemotoxin from glands in its mouth. Wrong. Unconscious follows within minutes of a bite. So, yeah, again, the book says about the bite. That's the another thing. So they say about that. That's why people think it could still have a bite. The shooting is more for the boys. The dinosaur will then finish off the victim in the laser, making the Dilophosaurus a beautiful but deadly addition to the animals you see here at Jurassic Park. The land cruiser turned a corner, leaving the river behind. Tom looked back, hoping for a last glimpse of the Dilophosaur. That was amazing. Poisonous dinosaurs! He wished he could stop the car, but everything was automatic. He bet Dr. Grant wanted to stop the car too. If you look on the bluff to your right, you'll see Les Gigantus, the site of our superb three-star dining room. Chef Elaine Richard hails from the world-famous Stuff in France. Make your reservations by dialing 4 from your hotel rooms. Tim looked up on the bluff and saw nothing. Not for a while, though. Edry just said the restaurant won't start construction until November. Continuing on our prehistoric safari, we next come to the herbivores of the little fucking orthoneals bullshit. If you look to your right, you can probably see them now. Tim saw 2 animals standing motionless in the shade of a large tree. Triceratops. The size of a grey... It's the size and grey colour of an elephant with a truculent stance of a rhino? Sure. The horns above each eye curved 5 feet into the air, looking almost like inverted elephant tusks. A third rhino-like horn was located near the nose. And Wi-Fi still buffers. Interesting. I do... oh, well, no, that might generally have been me. Because my frames dropped for a second. So it could have actually generally just been the stream. Yeah, I literally, as you looked up, I looked down, because I was like, why is my chat not loading on here? Which it does sometimes when that cuts out. Chat stops loading for whatever fucking reason on the app. But I do think it's a Twitch app thing. If you're watching on an app sometimes, I do think the app. But yeah, my frames, it said there's a bit of a drop, so probably the Wi-Fi peaked a bit. And because you got to remember, I'm running this all on Wi-Fi and I've had no issues. So more than likely that's what it was. There, I would like chat back on here. Don't necessarily need it, but I'd like it. There we go. But yeah, I noticed that literally as I just looked down, it's like 600 and something frames, and I'm like, ah. But I think it is just when the Wi-Fi peaks. Because again, this thing hasn't even told me there's problems. This disconnects 40 something times a stream. Nothing. I love it. I'm glad for the £3 extra. This is so fun. I'll just keep hold of him. Would you like to read? Yes. What do you think? Look, you're the next chapter. Look, it's you. Not interested? Okay. Anyway. Unlike other dinosaurs, the voice said, Triceratops serratus can't see very well. They're nearsighted like the rhinos of today, and they tend to be surprised by moving objects. They'd charge our car if they were close enough to see it, but relax, folks. We're safe enough here. Mean we're just like, look, it's you. Triceratops have a fan-shaped crest behind their heads, and it's made of solid bone. It's very strong. These animals weigh about 7 tons each. Despite their appearance, they actually are quite docile. They know their handlers, and they'll allow themselves to be petted. Oh my god, fucking it loaded. They're actually quite... They particularly like to be scratched in their hindquarters. Why don't they move? Lex said. She rolled down her window. Hey, stupid dinosaur! Move! Don't bother the animals, Lex, Ed Regis said. Why? It's stupid. They just sit there like a picture in a book, the voice, Lex said. The voice was saying, easygoing monsters from a bygone world stand in a sharp contrast to what we will see next. The most famous predator in history of the world, the mighty tyrant lizard known as Tyrannosaurus Rex. Also mean to Phoenix. Me today. She'd like scare the shit out of me because she wouldn't move for ages. I was trying to do something. I sat on that floor for 5 hours. Believe me, I'm fucking blessed to be sat in a chair. And then suddenly she was like up a fucking cage, and I'm like, didn't realise you were here, bitch. Go away. Fuck off. Hated it. Fucking shit. Get the shit out of me. Good, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Tim said. I hope he's better than those bozos. Like said, turning away from the Triceratops. The Land Cruiser rumbled forward. What are we on? Well, we're getting there. Nearly on to 5th. I probably will at least start half of 5th, and then we'll see how many pages we've done. And my aim is, finish no earlier than 11, even if it kills me. Just get the shit out of me. I was stressing over fucking every part of this outfit, and she's fucking every so often up a fucking scraping up the walls, and I'm like, and then I just turn around, and she's there like, I'm like, you're such a fucking dick. Big Rex. Let's do this. The mighty Tyrannosaurus arose late in dinosaur history. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for 120 million years, but the Tyrannosaurus for only the last 15 million years of that period. The land cruisers stopped at the rise of a hill. They overlooked a forested area sloping down to the edge of the lagoon. The sun was falling to the west, sinking into the misty horizon. The whole landscape... Oh, is this thing about to change stories? Yeah, probably. The whole landscape of Jurassic Park was bathed in a soft light, with lengthening shadows. The surface of the lagoon rippled into pink crescents. Further south, they saw graceful necks of the Apatosaurus standing at the water's edge, their bodies mirrored in the moving surface. It was quiet, except for the soft drone of cicadas. As they stared out of the landscape, it was possible to believe that they had really been transported millions of years back in time into a vanquished world. It works, doesn't it? They heard Regis say over the intercom. I like to come here sometimes in the evening and just sit. Grant was unimpressed. Where is the T-Rex? Good question. You often see the little one down in the lagoon. The lagoon stopped, so we have fish in there. The little one has learnt to catch the fish. Interesting how he does it, though. He doesn't use his hands, but he ducks his whole head under the water, like a bird. The little one. The little T-Rex. He's a juvenile, 2 years old, about a third grown now. Stands 8 feet high, weighs 1.5 tons. The other one's a fully grown tyrannosaur, but I don't see him at the moment. Maybe he's down hunting the apatosaurs, Grant said. Regis laughed, his voice tinny over the radio. He would if he could, believe me. Sometimes he stands by the lagoon and stares at the animals, and wiggles his little forearms in frustration. But the T-Rex territory is completely enclosed with trenches and fences. They're disguised from view, but believe me, he can't go anywhere. Then where is he? Hiding, Regis said. He's a little shy. Shy, Malcolm said. The Tyrannosaurus Rex is shy. Well, he conceals himself as a great general rule. You almost never see him out in the open, especially in daylight. Why is that? We think it's because he has sensitive skin and sunburns easily. Malcolm began to laugh. Grant sighed. You're destroying a lot of illusions. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Just wait. They heard a soft bleating sound. In the corner of a field, a small cage rose up into the view. Lifted on hydraulics from underground, the cage solid bar slid down. The goat remained tethered in the centre of the field, bleating. Any minute now, Regis said again. They stared out the window. Look at them, Hammond said, watching the control room. Leaning out of the window, so eager. They can't wait to see it. They've come for the danger. Give Big Rexy his daily sun cream. Legit. Oh no, our T-Rex gets sunburns. Oh, whatever shall we do? Get a new one. Get a new one. That's what I'm afraid of, Muldoon said. He twirled the keys on his fingers and watched the land cruisers tensely. This was the first time the visitors had toured Jurassic Park, and Muldoon shared Arnold's apprehension. Muldoon was a big man, 50 years old, with a steel grey moustache and deep blue eyes. See, no matter who you get to tell him, fine as fug. Raised in Kenya, he'd spent most of his life as a guide for African big game hunters, as had his father before him, but since 1980 he had worked principally for conservation groups and zoo designers as a wildlife consultant. He had become well known. An article in the London Sunday Times had said, what Robert Jones Trent is to golf courses, Robert Muldoon is to zoos, a designer of unsuppressed knowledge and skills. In 1986, he had done some work for a San Francisco company that was building a private wildlife park on an island in North America. Muldoon laying out the boundaries for different animals, defining space, habitat requirements for lions, elephants, zebras and hippos, identifying which animals could be kept together and which had to be separated. At the time, it had been a fairly routine job. He had been more interested in an Indian park called Tiger World in southern Kashmir. Then a year ago, he was offered a job as a game warden of Jurassic Park. It coincided with a desire to leave Africa. The salary was excellent. Muldoon had taken it on for a year. He was astonished to discover the park was really a collection of genetically engineered prehistoric animals. It was, of course, interesting work, but during his years in Africa, Muldoon had developed an unblinking view of animals, an unromantic view. that frequently set him at odds with Jurassic Park management in California, particularly the little martinet standing beside him in the control room. In Muldoon's opinion, cloning dinosaurs in a laboratory was one thing, maintaining them in the wild was another. Come to me, Rexy. Easy. It was Muldoon's view that some dinosaurs are too dangerous to be kept in the park setting. In part, the danger existed because they still knew so little about the animals. For example, nobody ever suspected that Dilophosaurus were poisonous until they observed hunting indigenous rats on the island, biting the rodents and then stepping back to wait for them to die. Iconic. And even then, nobody suspected that Dilophosaurus could spit until one of the handlers was almost blinded by the spitting venom. After that, Hammond had agreed to study Dilophosaur venom, which was found to contain several different toxic enzymes. It was also discovered that Dilophosaurus could spit at a distance of 50 feet. Since this raised the possibility that a guest in the car might be blinded, management decided to remove the poison sacs. The vets had tried twice or two on different animals without success. No one knew where the poison was being secreted, and no one would ever know until an autopsy was performed on a Dilophosaurus and management would allow one not to be killed. Muldoon worried even more about the velociraptors. They were instinctive hunters and they never passed up prey. They killed when they weren't hungry. They killed for the pleasure of killing. They were swift, strong runners and astonishing jumpers. They had lethal claws on all four limbs. One swipe at a forearm would disembowel a man, spilling his guts out. And they had powerful, tearing jaws that ripped flesh instead of biting. They were far more intelligent than the other dinosaurs, and they seemed to be natural cage breakers. Every zoo expert knew that certain animals were especially likely to get free of their cages. Some, like monkeys and elephants, could undo cage doors. Others, like wild pigs, were unusually intelligent and could lift gate fasteners with their snouts. But who would expect that a giant armadillo would be a notorious cage breaker, or a moose? Yet a moose was almost as skillful with its snout as an elephant with its trunk. Moose were always getting free. They had a talent for it. And so did velociraptors. Raptors were at least as intelligent as chimpanzees, and like chimpanzees, they had agile hands that enabled them to open doors and manipulate objects. And yet, we wait for a good while in the movie to be like, it's not like they could open doors. Cuts to them opening a door. They could escape with ease, and when, as Muldoon feared, one of them finally escaped, it killed 2 construction workers and maimed a third before being recaptured. After that episode, the visitor lodge had to be reworked with heavy barred gates and a high perimeter fence and tempered glass windows, because they don't want raptors getting in. And the raptor holding pen was built with electronic sensors to warn of an impending escape. Muldoon wanted guns as well. He wanted a soldier-mounted law missile launchers. Hunters knew how difficult it was to bring down a 4-ton African elephant, and some of the dinosaurs weighed 10 times as much. Management was horrified, insisting there be no guns anywhere on the island. When Muldoon threatened to quit and take his story to the press, a compromise was reached. In the end, 2 specially built laser-guided missile launchers were kept in a locked room in the basement. Only Muldoon had the keys for that. I'm going downstairs, he said. Arnold watched the control screens, nodded. The 2 Land Cruisers sat at the top of the hill waiting for the T-Rex to appear. Hey, Dennis Ned recalled from the far console. As long as you're up there, give me a Coke, okay? Grant waited in the car, watching quietly. The bleating of the goat became louder, more insistent. The goat tugged frantically as its tether, racing back and forth. Over the radio, Grant heard Lex say in alarm, "What's going to happen to the goat? Is she going to eat the goat?" "I think so," someone said to her, and then Ellie turned the radio down. Then they smelled the odour, a garbage stench of putrefaction, and decay that drifted up the hillside. Grant whispered, "He's here." "She," Malcolm said. The goat was tethered in the centre of the field, 30 yards from the nearest trees. The dinosaur must be somewhere among the trees, but for a moment Grant could see nothing at all. Then he realised he was looking too low. The animal's head stood 20 feet above the ground, half concealed among the upper branches of the palm trees. Malcolm whispered, "Oh my God, she's as large as a bloody building." Grant stared at the enormous square head, 5 feet long. Molted reddish brown with huge jaws and fangs. The Tyrannosaurus jaws worked once, opening and closing, but the animal did not emerge from hiding. Malcolm whispered, "How long will it wait?" Maybe 3 or 4 minutes, maybe. The Tyrannosaurus sprang slightly forward, fully revealing her enormous body. In 4 bounding steps, she covered the distance to the goat, bent down, and bit through the neck. The bleating stopped. There was silence. "It's Grandma, it's Grandma." This is the one bit I love about the movie. You never see that fucker until it all goes to shit, and you get this beautiful look at this animatronic. Whereas here you see her. And I think I always do love that bit about the movie. You don't see her until it goes wrong. Same with the raptors. You do not see them until the dramatic reveals. And I think I love that. Like, I love this whole, like, look. But knowing that you do not see it until it has to happen is 10 out of 10, you know. Fucking love it. Poised over a kill, the Tyrannosaurus became suddenly hesitant, her massive head turned on a muscular neck, looking in all directions. She stared fixedly at the Land Cruiser high above the hill. Malcolm whispered, "Can she see us?" "Oh yes," Regis said. On the intercom. "Let's see if she's going to eat here in front of us or if she's going to drag the prey away." Another big thing. They're not fucking moving and you can fucking see them. The Tyrannosaurus bent down and sniffed the carcass of the goat. A bird chirped, her head snapped up, alert and watchful. She looked back and forth, scanning in small jerking shifts. "Like a bird," Ellie said. Still, the T-Rex hesitated. "What is she afraid of?" Malcolm whispered. "Probably another Tyrannosaurus." Grant whispered. "Big carnivores like lions and tigers often become cautious after a kill, behaving as if suddenly exposed. 19th century zoologists imagined that animals felt guilty for what they had done. But contemporary scientists documented the effort behind the kills, hours patiently stalking before the final lunge, as well as frequent failure. The idea of nature red in tooth and claw was wrong. Most often the prey got away. When a carnivore finally brought down an animal, it was watchful for another predator who might attack and steal its prize. Thus, this tyrannosaur was probably fearful of another one. The huge animal bent over the goat again. One limb held the carcass in place as the jaws began to tear the flesh. "She's going to stay," Regis whispered. "Excellent." The Tyrannosaurus lifted her head again. Ragged chunks of bleeding flesh in her jaws. She stared at the Land Cruiser. She began to chew. They heard the sickening crunch of bones. "Ew," Luke said over the intercom. "That's disgusting." And then, as if caution had finally gotten the better of her, the Tyrannosaurus lifted the remains of the goat in her jaws and carried them silently back toward the trees. "Ladies and gentlemen, Tyrannosaurus Rex," the tape said. The Land Cruiser started up and moved silently off through the foliage. Malcolm sat back in his seat. "Fantastic," he said. Gennaro wiped his forehead. He looked pale. Control. Henry Wu came into the control room to find everyone sitting in the dark, listening to the voices on the radio. "Jesus, if an animal like that gets out," Gennaro was saying, his voice tinny on the speaker, "there'd be no stopping it." "No stopping it, no. Huge with no natural enemies. My God, think of it." In the control room, Hammond said, "Damn, those people. They're so negative." Wu said, "They're still going on about an animal escaping? I don't understand. They must have seen by now that we have everything under control. We've engineered the animals and engineered the resort." He shrugged. In Wu's deepest perception that the park was fundamentally totally sound, as he believed his paleo DNA was fundamentally sound, whatever problems might arise in the DNA were essentially point problems in the code, causing a specific problem in the phenotype. An enzyme that didn't switch on or a protein that didn't fold. Whatever the difficulty, it was always solved with a relatively minor adjustment in the next version. Similarly, he knew that Jurassic Park's problems were not fundamental problems. They were not control problems. Nothing as basic or as serious as the possibility of an animal escaping. We found it offensive to think that anyone would believe him capable of contributing to a system where such a thing could happen. "It's that Malcolm," Hammond said darkly. "He's behind it all. He was against us from the start. You know, he's got a theory that complex systems can't be controlled and nature can't be imitated. I don't know where his problem is. Hell, we're just making a zoo here. The world's full of them. They all work fine, but he's going to prove his theory or die trying. I just hope he didn't panic Gennaro into trying to shut down the park. Wu said, "Can he do that?" "No," Hammond said, "but he can try. He can try and frighten the Japanese investors and get them to withdraw funds. Or he can make a stink with the San Jose government. He can make trouble." Arnold snubbed out his cigarette. "Let's wait and see what happens," he said. "We believe in the park. Let's see how it plays out." Muldoon got off the elevator and nodded to the ground. Nodded to the ground floor guard. Oh, yeah. And went downstairs to the basement. He flipped on the lights. The basement was filled with 24 Land Cruisers arranged in neat rows. These were the electric cars that would eventually form an endless loop, touring the park and returning to the visitor centre. In the corner was a Jeep with a red stripe, one of 2 gas-line-powered vehicles. Harding, the vet, had taken the other the morning, which could go anywhere in the park, even among the animals. The Jeeps were painted with a diagonal red stripe because, for some reason, it discouraged the Triceratops from charging the car. Muldoon moved past the Jeep towards the back. The steel door of the armaments room was unmarked. He unlocked it with his key and swung the heavy door wide. Gun racks lined the interior. He pulled out a Randler shoulder launcher and a case of canisters. He tucked 2 grey rockets under his arm. After locking the door behind him, he put the gun into the back seat of the Jeep. As he left the garage, he heard the distant rumble of thunder. "Looks like rain," Ed Regis said, glancing up at the sky. The Land Cruisers stopped again, near the sauropod swamp. A large herd of apatosaurs was grazing at the edge of the lagoon, eating the leaves of the upper branches of the palm trees. In the same area were several duckbill hadrosaurs, which in comparison looked much smaller. Of course, oh no, rain. Of course, Tim knew the hadrosaur wasn't really small. It was only the apatosaurs that were so much larger. Their tiny heads looked 50 feet into the air, extending out by their long necks. "The big animals you see are commonly called brontosauruses," the recording said, "but they are actually apatosauruses." And then we go to brachiosauruses. By that, because we chose brachies for the fucking movies. They weigh more than 30 tons. That means a single animal is as big as a whole herd of modern elephants. You may notice that their preferred area, alongside the lagoon, is not swampy. Despite what the books say, brontosauruses avoid swamps. They prefer dry lands. "Brontosaurus is the biggest dinosaur, Lex," Ed Regis said. Tim didn't bother to contradict him. Actually, Brachiosaurus was 3 times as large. And some people thought Ultrasaurus, or Seismosaurus, was even larger than Brachiosaurus. Seismosaurus must have weighed 100 tons. Alongside the Apatosaurus, the smaller hadrosaurs stood on their hind legs to get foliage. They moved gracefully for such large creatures. Several infant hadrosaurs scampered around the adults, eating the leaves that dropped from their mouths of the larger animals. "The dinosaurs of Jurassic Park don't read," the recording said. "Their young animals were introduced a few months ago, already hatched. But the adults nurture them anyway." There was a rolling growl of thunder. The sky was darker, lower, and menacing. "Yeah, looks like rain, all right," Ed Regis said. The car started forward, and Tim looked back at the hadrosaurs. Suddenly, off to one side, he saw a pale yellow animal move quickly. There was brownish stripes on its back. He recognized it instantly. "Hey, stop the car! What is it?" Ed said. "Quick, stop the car!" What? We move on now to see the large of our great prehistoric animals, the Stegosaurus, the recorded voice said. "What's the matter, Tim? I saw one in the field over there." "Saw what?" "A raptor in the field." The Stegosaurus is the mid-Jurassic animal, evolving about 170 million years ago, the recording said. "Several of these remarkable herbivores live here at Jurassic Park." "Oh, I don't think so, Tim," Ed said. "Not a raptor." "I did. Stop the car." There was a babble on the intercom as the news was relayed to Grant and Malcolm. "Tim says he saw a raptor." "Where?" "Back of the field." "Let's go back and look." "We can't go back," Ed said. "We can only go forward. The cars are programmed." "Why can't we go back?" Grant said. "No," Regis said. "Sorry, you can't. It's kind of a ride." Another line from Hammond. Tim, this is Professor Malcolm, said a voice cutting into the intercom. I have just one question for you about this raptor. How old would you say it was? Older than the baby we saw today, but younger than the big adults in the pen. The adults were 6 feet tall. This one was half the size of that. That's fine, Malcolm said. I only saw it for a second. Tim said, I'm sure it wasn't a raptor. It said it couldn't possibly be a raptor. Must have been one of the other Othies. They always jump in the fences. We have a hell of a time with them. I know I saw a raptor, Tim said. I'm hungry, Lex said, starting to whine. In the control room, Arnold turned to Wu. What do you think the kids saw? I think it must have been an Othie. Arnold nodded. We have trouble tracking the Othies because they spend so much time in the trees. The Othies were an exception to the usual minute-to-minute control they maintained over the animals. The computer was constantly losing them and picking up the other Othies as they went into the trees and then came back down. What burns me, Hammond said, is that we've made this wonderful park, this fantastic park, and our first visitors are going through it like accountants, just looking for problems. They aren't experiencing the wonder of it at all. That's their problem, Arnold said. We can't make them experience wonder. The intercom clicked and Arnold heard a voice drow. John, this is Anby over at the dock. We haven't finished offloading, but I'm looking at the storm pattern south of us. I'd rather not be tied up here if the chopper gets any worse. Arnold turned to the monitor, showing the cargo vessel, which was moored at the dock on the east side of the island. He pressed the radio button. How much left to do, Jim? Just the 3 final equipment canisters. I haven't checked the manifest, but I assume you can wait another 2 weeks for it. Well, we're not well berthed here, you know. We're 100 miles offshore. You're requesting permission to leave? Yes, John. I want that equipment, Hammond said. That equipment for labs, we need it. Yes, Hammond said, but we don't want to put money into a storm barrier to protect the pier. So we don't have a good harbour. If the storm gets worse, that ship will be pounded against the dock. I've seen ships lost that way. Then you've got all other expensive replacement of the vessel plus salvage to clean your dock. And you can't use your dock until you do. Hammond gave a diminishing wave. Get them out of there. Permission to leave, Anby, Arnold said over the radio. See you in 2 weeks, the voice said. On the video monitor, they saw the crew on the docks cast off the lines. Arnold turned back to the main console bank. He saw the land cruisers moving through fields of steam. Where are they now? Hammond said. Looks like they're in the south fields, Arnold said. The southern end of the island had more volcanic activity than the north. That means they should be almost at the Stegos. I'm sure they'll stop and see what Harding's doing. Obviously, now the big other things should be more concerned the Othies are escaping. What are you going to do? They ain't going to do shit. They're just going to get eaten. They'll be fine. Yeah, they're little herbivores. They ain't going to do shit. They ain't going to do fuck all. You care less if, like... It's the same with any animal. If you go to the zoo and something that is probably either a habit or something that thing escapes, like we did with the fucking parrots. You watch them escape and you're like, have a good life. Tiger gets out, you're like, that might be a problem. Birds flying around, Tigger, That much left of 4. And it's been 3 hours. Jesus. They weren't wrong when they say this audiobook takes 15. Obviously, the big difference now, we're getting to the stegosaurs instead of a triceratops. As the land cruiser came to a stop, Ellie Sattler stared through the plumes of steam at the stegosaurs. It was standing quietly, not moving. A jeep with a red stripe was parked alongside it. I have to admit, there's a funny looking at it, Malcolm said. The stegosaurus was 20 feet long, with a huge, bulky body and vertical arm plates along its back. The tail had a dangerous-looking 3-foot spikes, but the neck tapered to an absurdly small head with a stupid gaze, like a very dumb horse. As they watched, a man walked around from behind the animal. That's our vet, Dr. Harding, Risa said over the radio. He's an ethicist. I know it, but I'm not going to get them. The stego, which is why it's not moving. It's sick. Grant was already getting out of the car, hurrying towards the motionless stegosaur. Ellie got out and looked back at the second land cruiser and pulled up, and the two kids jumped out. What's he sick with? Tim said. Whoop. Harding mentioned, whoop whoop, one whole vet, and he gets good in a good game. Ooh. They're not sure, Ellie said. Its great leathery plates along the stegosaur's spine drooped slightly. It breathed slowly, laboriously, making a wet sound with each breath. Is it contagious? Lex said. They walked toward the tiny head of the animal, where Grant and the vet were on their knees, peering into the stegosaurus's mouth. Lex wrinkled her nose. That thing is sure big. And smelly. Yes, it is. Ellie had already noticed the stegosaur had a peculiar odour, like rotting fish. It reminded her of something she knew, but couldn't quite place. In any case, she'd never smelled a stegosaur before. Maybe this was its characteristic odour, but she had her doubts. Most herbivores did not have a strong smell, nor did their droppings. It was reserved for meat eaters to develop a real stink. Is that because it's sick? Lex asked. Maybe. And don't forget, the vets tranquilized it. Ellie, have a look at this tongue, Grant said. The dark purple tongue drooped limply from the animal's mouth. The vet shone a light on it so she could see the fine silvery blisters. Microvesicles. Ellie said, interesting. We've had a difficult time with these stegos, the vet said. They're always getting sick. What are their symptoms? Ellie asked. She scratched the tongue with her fingernail. Clear liquid exuded from the broken blisters. Ugh, Lex said. Imbalance, disorientation, laboured breathing, and massive diarrhea, Harding said. Seems to happen once every 6 weeks or so. They feed continuously? Oh yes, Harding said. Animal that size has to take in a minimum of 500 or 600 pounds of plants matter daily just to keep going. They're constant foragers. Then it's not likely to poisoning from a plant, Ellie said. Constant browsers would be constantly sick if they were eating a toxic plant, not every 6 weeks. Exactly, the vet said. May I? Ellie said. She took the flashlight from the vet. You have pupillary effects from the tranquilizer, she said, shining the light in his eye. Yes. There's a myotic effect. Pupils are constricted. But the pupils are dilated, she said. Harding looked. There was no question. The stegosaur's pupil was dilated and did not contract when the light shone on it. Well, I'll be damned, Harding said. That's a pharmacological effect. Yes, Ellie got back on her feet and looked around. What is the animal's range? About 5 square miles. In this general area? She asked. They were in an open meadow with scattered rocky outcrops and intermittent plumes of steam rising from the ground. It was late afternoon, the sky was pink beneath lowering grey clouds. The range is mostly north and east of here, Harding said, but when they get sick they're usually somewhere around this particular area. It was an interesting puzzle, she thought. How to explain the periodicity of the poisoning? She pointed across the field. You see those low, delicate-looking bushes? West Indian lilac, he said. We know it's toxic, but the animals don't eat it. You sure? Yes. We monitored them on video and I checked the droppings just to be certain. The stegos never eat the lilac berries. Melia azadaric, called Chinaberry or West Indian lilac, contain a number of toxic alkaloids. The Chinese use them as a plant. The Chinese use the plant as a fish poison. They don't eat it, the vet said. Interesting, Ellie said, because otherwise I would have said that the animal shows all the classic signs of toxicity. Stupor, blistering of the mucous membranes, and pupillary dilation. She set off toward the field to examine the plants some more, her belly bent over the ground. You're right, the plants are healthy, no signs of being eaten, none at all. And there's the 6-week interval, the vet reminded her. The stegos come here often? About once a week, stegos make a slow loop through their home territory, feeding as they go. They complete a loop in a week. But they're only sick once every 6 weeks. Correct. This is boring, Lex said. Shh, Tim said. Dr. Sattler's trying to think. Unsuccessfully, Ellie said, walking further into the field. Ow. Jesus. Don't read books, kids. They get you killed. Don't die. I won't finish the book. You have to read it yourself. Behind her, she heard Lex saying, anyone want to play a little pickle? Ellie stared at the ground. The field was rocky in many places. She could hear the sound of the surf somewhere to the left. There were berries among the rocks. Perhaps the animals were just eating berries, but that didn't make sense. West Indian lilac berries were terribly bitter. Finding anything? Grant said, coming up to join her. Ellie sighed. Just rocks, she said. We must be near the beach because all the rocks are smooth. And they're in funny little piles. Funny little piles, Grant said. All over. There's one pile right there, she pointed. As soon as she did, she realised what she was looking at. The rocks were warm but had nothing to do with the ocean. The rocks were heaped in small piles, almost as if they'd been thrown down that way. These were piles of gizzard stones. Many birds and crocodiles swallowed small stones, which collected in a muscular pouch in the digestive tract called the gizzard. Squeezed by the muscles of the gizzard, the stones helped crush tough plant food before it reached the stomach and thus aided digestion. Some scientists thought dinosaurs also had gizzard stones. For one thing, dinosaurs' teeth were too small and too little worn to have any use for chewing food. It was presumed that dinosaurs swallowed their food whole and let the gizzard stones break down the plant fibres. And some skeletons have been found with an associated pile of small stones in the abdominal area. But it had only been verified and gizzard stones, Grant said. I think so. They swallow these stones. After a few weeks, the stones are worn smooth. They regurgitate them, leaving this little pile and swallow fresh stones. And when they do, they swallow berries as well and get sick. I'll be damned, Grant said. I'm sure you're right. He looked at the pile of stones, brushing through them with his hand, following the instinct of a paleontologist. Then he stopped. Ellie, he said, take a look at this. Put it right there, babe, right in the old mitt, Lex cried, and Gennaro threw the ball to her. She threw it back so hard that his hand stung. Take it easy. I don't have a glove. You wimp, she said contemptuously. Annoyed, he fired the ball at her and heard it smack in the leather. Now that's more like it, she said. Standing by the dinosaur, Gennaro continued to play catch as he talked to Malcolm. How does this sick dinosaur fit into your theory? It's predicted, Malcolm said. Gennaro shook his head. Is anything not predicted by your theory? Look, Malcolm said, it has nothing to do with me. It's chaos theory. But I notice nobody is willing to listen to the consequences of the mathematics, because they imply very large consequences for human life, much larger than Heisenberg's principle, or Gödel's theorem, which everyone rattles on about. They are actually rather academic considerations, philosophical considerations. But chaos theory concerns everyday life. Do you know why computers were first built? No, Gennaro said. Burn it in there, Lex yelled. Computers were built in the late 1940s because mathematicians like John von Neumann thought if you had a computer, a machine to handle a lot of variables simultaneously, you'd be able to predict the weather. Weather would finally fall to human understanding, and men believed that dream for the next 40 years. They believed the prediction was just a function of keeping track of things. If you knew enough, you could predict anything. That's been a cherished scientific belief since Newton. And chaos theory throws it right out the window. It says that you can never predict a certain phenomena at all. You can never predict the weather more than a few days. All the money that has been spent on long-range forecasting, about $500 million in the last few decades, is money wasted. It's a fool's errand. It's pointless to try and turn lead into gold. We look back at the alchemists and laugh at what they were trying to do, but future generations will laugh at us the same way. We tried the impossible, spent a lot of money doing it. Because, in fact, there are great categories of phenomena that are inherently unpredictable. Chaos says that? Yes. And it's astonishing how few people care to hear it, Malcolm said. I gave all this information to Hammond long before he broke ground on this place. You're going to engineer a bunch of prehistoric animals and set them on an island? Fine. A lovely dream. Charming. But it won't go as planned. It's inherently unpredictable, just as the weather is. You told him this, Gennaro said. Yes. We also told him whether deviations would occur. Obviously, the fitness of the animals and to the environment was one area. The stegosaur is 100 million years old. It isn't adapted to our world. The air is different. The solar radiation is different. The land is different. The insects are different. The sounds are different. The vegetation is different. Everything is different. The oxygen content is decreased. This poor animal, like a human being, at 10,000 feet altitude. Listen to him wheezing. And the other areas? Broadly speaking, the ability of the park to control the spread of life forms, because of the history of evolution, is that life escapes all barriers. Life breaks free. Life expands to new territories, painfully, perhaps even dangerously. but life finds a way. And I have one for that.
Life, finds a way.
Malcolm shook his head. I don't mean to be philosophical. Whatever. And there it is. But there it is. Gennaro looked over. Ellie and Grant were across the field, waving their arms and shouting. Did you get me my Coke? Dennis Nedry asked as Muldoon came back to the control room. Muldoon didn't even bother to answer. He went directly to the monitor and looked at what was happening over the radio and heard Harding's voice saying, "The stego. Finally. Handle. On. Now." "What's that about?" Muldoon said. "They're down by the south point," Arnold said. "That's why they're breaking up a little. I'll switch to another channel. But they found out what's wrong with the stego. Eating some kind of berry." Hammond nodded. "I knew we'd solve that sooner or later," he said. "It's not very impressive," Gennaro said. He held up the white fragment no larger than a postage stamp, up on a fingertip in fading light. "You sure about this, Alan?" "Absolutely sure," Grant said. "What gives it away is the patting of the interior surface, the interior curve. Turn it over and you'll notice a faint pattern of raised lines, making roughly triangular shapes." "Yes, I see them. Well, I've dug out 2 eggs with patterns like this at any site in Montana." "So you're saying this is a piece of dinosaur eggshell?" "Absolutely. Finding the eggs nice and early." Harding shook his head. "These dinosaurs can't breed." "Evidently they can," Gennaro said. "There must be a bird egg," Harding said. "We have literally dozens of species on the island." Grant shook his head. "Look at the curvature. The shell is almost flat, as a very big egg. And notice the thickness of the shell. Unless you have ostriches on this island, it's a dinosaur egg. But they can't possibly breed." Harding insisted. "All the animals are female. All I know," Grant said, "is this is a dinosaur egg." Malcolm said, "Can you tell us the species?" "Yes," Grant said. "It's a velociraptor egg." "Absolutely absurd," Hammond said in the control room, listening to the report over the radio. "It must be a bird egg. That's all it can be." The radio crackled. He heard Malcolm's voice. "Let's do a little test, shall we? Ask Mr. Arnold to run one of his computer tallies." "Now?" "Yes. Right now. I understand you can transmit it to the screen in Dr. Harding's car." "Do that too, will you?" "No problem," Arnold said. A moment later, the screen in the control room pointed out. "Same as before. 238 animals." "I hope you're satisfied," Hammond said. "Are you receiving it down on your screen?" "We see it," Malcolm said. "Everything accounted for. As always." He couldn't keep the satisfaction out of his voice. "Now then, can you have the computer search for a different number of animals?" "Like what?" "Try 239. "Just a minute," Arnold said, frowning. A moment later, it printed. Prints out 239. Hammond sat forward. "What the hell is that?" "We picked up another compy." "From where?" "I don't know." The radio crackled. "Now then, can you ask a computer to search for, let's say, 300 animals?" "What is he talking about?" Hammond said, his voice rising. 300 animals? What is he talking about?" "Just a minute. It'll take a few minutes." He punched buttons on his screen. The first lines read as total. Total animals. 239. "I don't understand what he's driving at," Hammond said. "I'm afraid I do," Arnold said. He watched the screen numbers on the first line were clicking. Total animals, 244. 244! Hammond said. "What's going on?" "The computer is counting the animals in the park," Wu said. "All the animals." "I thought that's what it always did," he spun. "Nedry, have you screwed up again?" "No," Nedry said, looking up his console. "Computer allows the operator to enter an expected number of animals in order to make the counting process faster. But it's a convenience, not a flaw." He's right, we just always used the base count of 238 because we assumed there couldn't be more. Total animals, 262. "Wait a minute. These animals can't breed. The computer must be counting field mice or something," Hammond said. I think so too," Arnold said. "It's almost certainly an error in the visual tracking, but we'll know soon enough." Hammond turned to Wu. "They can't breed, can they?" "No," Wu said. Total animals, 270. "Where are they coming from?" Arnold said. "Damned if I know," Wu said. They watched the numbers climb. Total animals, 283. Over the radio, they heard Gennaro say, "Holy shit, how much more?" And they heard the girl say, "I'm getting hungry. When are we going home?" Pretty soon, Lex, on the screen there was a flashing error. "Error. Search parameters. 300 animals not found. An error, Hammond said, nodding. I thought so. I had a feeling all along there must be an error. But a moment later, the screen printed. Total animals, 292. The radio crackled. Now you see the flaw in your procedures, Malcolm said. You only track the expected number of dinosaurs. You were worried about losing animals, and your procedures were designed to advise you instantly if you had less than the expected number. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was you had more than expected. Christ. There can't be more, we said. We know we've released... We know you released. There can't be more. Afraid so, Henry. They're breeding. No. Even if you don't accept Grant's eggshell, you can't prove it with your own data. Take a look at the compy height graph. Arnold put up for you now. Is anything different, Malcolm said. It's a fucking weird division thing, normal curve. But didn't you say introduce compies in 3 batches at 6-month intervals? Yes. Then you should have a graph with peaks for each month. They were introduced. Like this. Nice little graph. But you didn't get this graph. The graph you actually got is a graph of the breeding population. Your compies are breeding. Wu shook his head. I don't know. They're breeding. And so the others. And the velociraptors. Christ. Muldoon said there are raptors free in this park. Well, it's not that bad, Hammond said, looking at the screen. We have increases in the 3 categories. Well, 5 categories. Very small increases in 2 of them. What are you talking about? We said loudly. Don't you know what this means? Of course I know what this means, Henry, Hammond said. It means you screwed up. Absolutely not. You've got breeding dinosaurs out there, Henry, but they're all female. It's impossible. There must be a mistake. And look at the numbers. A small increase in the big animals, the myosaurs and the hypses. And big increases in the number of small animals. I just don't make sense. It must be a mistake. The radio clicked. Actually not, Grant said. I think the numbers confirm breeding has taken place in seven different sites across the island. I do love the fact that you read the 37. I just immediately clocking 37 raptors. Let's actually have a look. So originally, let's compare before we do the last little bit of that. I have now, I think, lost. Where'd you go? There it is. So, 2 T-Rexes, that's normal. Myosaurs, there should be 21. They end up with 22. Fine. Stegos are the same. Triceratops are the same. Compies go from basically 50 to 65. The Othies go to 23 from 16. The Velociraptors go from 8 to 37. Obviously, most of them are the same. One of the little bitches get up. So yeah, big old chunk. I'm very interested how many raptors there are. It's scale and how fucked you are. Yeah, it's like how fucked are you about to be? Breeding sites. Seriously though, actually, this whole fucking from page 97, and we will finish on 205. Basically 107 pages is just that long. Like, geez. That's just one section. It says 25 minutes left for this chapter. I mean, yeah, it probably is about right. That's what I mean. Like, when Google said about it, they're like, yeah, those 2 you could do pretty quick. And I'm like, okay, probably not. The sky was growing darker. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Grant and the others leaned in the doors of the jeep, staring at the screen on the dashboard. Breeding sites, Wu said over the radio. Nests, Grant said. Assuming the average clutch is 8 to 12 hatching eggs, this data would indicate the compies have 2 nests. The raptors have 2 nests. The offies have 1 nest. And the hipsies and the Myers have 1 nest each. Where are the nests? We'll have to find them, Grant said. Dinosaurs build their nests in secluded places. Why are there few big animals? If there was a Maya nest of 8 to 12 eggs, there should be 8 to 12 new Mayas, not just 1. That's right, Grant said, except that the raptors and the compies are loose in the park and probably eating the eggs of the bigger animals, and perhaps eating the newly hatched young as well. But we've never seen that. Raptors are nocturnal. Is anyone watching the park at night? There was a long silence. I didn't think so, Grant said. Still doesn't make sense, Wu said. You can't support 50 additional animals on a couple of nests of eggs. No, Grant said. I assume they're eating something else as well. Probably small rodents, mice or rats. There was another silence. Let me guess. When you first came to the island, you had a problem with rats, but as time passed, the problem faded away? Yes, that's true. And you never thought to investigate? We just assumed, Arnold said. Look, Wu said. The fact remains all the animals are female. They can't breed. Grant had been thinking about that. He had recently learned of an intriguing West German study that he suspected held the answer. When you made the dinosaur DNA, you were working with fragmentary pieces, right? Yes. In order to make a complete strand, were you ever required to include DNA fragments from other species? Occasionally, yes, Wu said. It's the only way to accomplish the job. Sometimes we include an avian DNA with a variety of birds, and sometimes reptilian. Any amphibian DNA? Specifically frog DNA? Possibly, I'd have to check. I think you'll find the holes that holds the answer. Malcolm said. Frog DNA? Why frog DNA? Gennaro said impatiently. Listen, this is all very intriguing, but we're forgetting the main question. Have any animals got off the island? Grant said. We can't tell from this data. Then how are we going to find out? There's only one way I know. We'll have to find the individual nests, inspect them, count the remaining egg fragments. From there, we may be able to determine how many animals were originally hatched, and we can begin to assess whether any are missing. Malcolm said, even so, if they're missing, they could be killed or dead from natural causes, or whether they have left the island. No, but it's a start, and I think we get more information from an intensive look at the population graphs. How are we going to find those nests? Actually, I think the computer will be able to help with that. Can we go back now? Lex said, I'm hungry. Yes, let's go, Grant said, smiling at her. Been very patient. You'll be able to eat in about 20 minutes, Ed Regis said, starting toward the two Land Cruisers. I'll stay a while and get photos of the stego with Dr. Harding's camera. Those vesicles in the mouth will have cleared up by tomorrow. I want to go back, Grant said. I'll go with the kids. I will too, Malcolm said. I think I'll stay, Gennaro said, and go back with Dr. Harding in his jeep with Dr. Sadler. Fine, let's go. They started walking, Malcolm said. Where exactly is our lawyer staying? Grant said, I think it might have something to do with Dr. Sattler. Really? The shorts? You think? It's happened before, Grant said. When they came to the Land Cruisers, Tim said, I want to ride in the front one this time with Dr. Grant. Malcolm said, unfortunately, Dr. Grant and I need to talk. I'll just sit and listen. I won't say anything, Tim said. It's a private conversation, Malcolm said. Tell you what, Tim. Ed said, let them sit in the car by themselves. We'll sit in the front car and you can use the night vision goggles. Have you ever used the night vision goggles, Tim? They're goggles with very sensitive CCDs that allow you to see in the dark. Neat, he said and moved towards the fur car. Hey, I want to use it too, Lex said. No, Tim said. No fair. You get to do everything, Timmy. Avery just watched them go and said to Grant, I can see what the ride back is going to be like. Grant and Malcolm climbed into the second car. A few raindrops spattered the windshield. Let's get going, Ed said. I'm about ready for dinner, and I could do with a nice banana daiquiri. What do you folks say? Daiquiri sound good? He pounded the metal panel of the car. See you back at camp, he said, and he started running towards the first car as he climbed. Now, if I had 30 raptors loose on the island, I'd be running back home. I'd be like, free pet. Free bitch. Free baby. A red light on the dashboard blinked. With a soft electric whir, the Land Cruiser started off. Driving back into the Fatum light, Malcolm seemed oddly subdued. Grant said, you must feel vindicated about your theory. As a matter of fact, I'm feeling a bit of dread. I suspect we are at a very dangerous point. Why? Intuition. Do mathematicians believe in intuition? Absolutely very important intuition, actually. I was thinking about fractals. Malcolm said, know about fractals? Grant shook his head. No, not really. Fractals are a kind of geometry associated with a man named Mandelbrot. Unlike ordinary geometry that everyone learns in school, squares and cubes and spheres, fractal geometry appears to describe real objects in natural worlds. Mountains and clouds have fractal shapes, so fractals are probably related to reality somehow. Well, Mandelbrot found a remarkable thing with his geometric tools. He found things looked almost identical at different scales. At different scales? Grant said. For example, Malcolm said, a big mountain seen from far away has a certain rugged mountain shape. But if you get closer and examine a small peak on the big mountain, it will have the same mountain shape. In fact, you go all the way down the scale to a tiny speck of rock seen under a microscope, it will still have the same basic fractal shape of a big mountain. I don't see why this is worrying you, Grant said. He yawned. He smelled the sulfur fumes of volcanic steam. They were coming down to the section of the road that ran near the coastline, overlooking the beach and the ocean. It's a way of looking at things, Malcolm said. Mandelbrot found a sameness for the smallest to the largest, and the sameness of the scale occurs for events. Consider cotton prices, Malcolm said. There are good records of cotton prices going back more than 100 years. When you study fluctuations in cotton prices, you can find that the graph of price fluctuations in the course of a day looks basically like a graph for a week, which looks basically like the graph for a year or for 10 years. And that's how things are. A day is like a whole life. You start out doing one thing, but end up doing something else. Plan to run an errand, but never get there. And at the end of your life, your whole existence has the same haphazard quality too. Your whole life has the same shape as a single day. I guess it's one way to look at things, Grant said. No, Malcolm, it's the only way to look at things. At least it's the only way to see it that is true to reality. You see, the fractal ideas of sameness carries within its aspect of recursion, a kind of double back on itself, which means that events are unpredictable, that they can change suddenly, without warning. Okay, but we have soothed ourselves into imagining sudden change as something that happens outside the normal order of things, an accident like a car crash, or beyond our control like a fatal illness. We do not conceive of sudden radical irrational change as built into the fabric of existence, yet it is, and chaos theory teaches us. Malcolm said that straight linearity, which have come for taken granted, is everything from physics to fiction. Simple does not exist. Linearity is an artificial way of viewing the world. Real life isn't a series of interconnected events occurring one after another, like beads strung on a necklace. Life is actually a series of encounters in which one event may change those that follow in a wholly unpredictable, even devastating way. Malcolm sat back at his seat, looking toward the other Land Cruiser, a few yards ahead. There's a deep truth about the structure of the universe, but for some reason we insist on behaving as if it was not true. At that moment, the cars jolted to a stop. What happened? Grant said. Up ahead, they saw the kids in the car, pointing towards the ocean. Offshore, beneath lowering clouds, Grant saw the dark outline of a supply boat making its way back toward Punta Arenas. Why have we stopped? Malcolm said. Grant turned on the radio and heard the little girl saying excitedly, "Look, there, Timmy, you see it, it's there." Malcolm squeaked at the boat. Are they talking about the boat? Apparently. Ed Regis climbed out of the front door and came running back to their window. "I'm sorry, but the kids are all worked up. Do you have binoculars here?" "For what?" "The little girl says she sees something on the boat. Some kind of animal," Regis said. Grant grabbed the binoculars and rested his elbows on the window ledge of the Land Cruiser. He scanned the long shape of the supply ship. It was so dark it was almost a silhouette. As he watched, the ship's running lights came on, brilliant in dark purple twilight. "Do you see anything?" Regis said. "No," Grant said. "They're low down," Lex over the radio. "Look low down." Grant tilted the binoculars down, scanning the hull just above the waterline. The supply ship was broad-beamed, with a splash flange that ran the length of the ship, but it was quite dark now, and he could hardly make out the details. "No, nothing. I can see them," Lex said impatiently. "Near the back. Look near the back." "How can she see anything in this light?" Malcolm said. "Kids can see," Grant said. "They've got visual acuity we forget we ever had." He swung the binoculars towards the stern, moving them slowly, and suddenly he saw the animals. They were playing, darting among the silhouetted stern structures. He could see them only briefly, but in fading light he could tell that they were upright animals, about 2 feet tall, standing with stiff, balancing tails. You see them now? Lex said. I see them, he said. What are they? They're raptors, Grant said. At least 2, maybe more. Juveniles. Jesus, Ed Regis said. That boat's going to the mainland. Malcolm shrugged. Don't get too excited. Just call the control room and tell them to recall the boat. Ed reached in and grabbed the radio from the dashboard. They heard hissing static and clicks as he rapidly changed channels. There's something wrong with this one. It's not working. He ran off to the first land cruiser. They saw him duck in, and then he looked back at them. There's something wrong with both the radios. I can't raise the control room. Then let's get going, Grant said. In the control room, Muldoon stood before the big windows that overlooked the park. At 7 o'clock, the quartz floodlights came on the island, turning the landscape into a glowing jewel, stretching away to the south. This was his favourite moment of the day. He heard the crackle of the static from the radios. The land cruisers have started again, Arnold said. They're on the way home. But why did they stop? And why can't we talk to them? I don't know. Maybe they turned off the radios in the car? Probably the storm, Muldoon said. Interference from the storm. They'll be here in 20 minutes, Hammond said. You better cool down and make sure the dining room is ready. Those kids are going to be hungry. Arnold picked up the phone and steady monotonous hiss. What's this? What's going on? Jesus, hang that up, Nedry said. Just grab the data stream. You've taken all the phone lines, even the internal ones? I've taken all the lines that communicate outside, but your internal line should still work. Arnold punched the console buttons one after the other. He heard nothing but hissing. Looks like you've got all of them. Sorry about that, Nedry said. I'll clear a couple for you at the end of the next transmission in about 15 minutes. He yawned. Looks like we've got a long weekend for me. I guess I'll get that Coke now. He picked up his shoulder bag and headed for the door. Don't touch my console, okay? The door closed. What a slob, Hammond said. Yeah, but I guess he knows what he's doing. Alongside the road, clouds of volcanic steam misted rainbows and bright quartz lights. Grant said into the radio, how long does it take to the ship to reach the mainland? 18 hours, more or less. It's pretty reliable. Should arrive by 11 in the morning. You still can't talk to the control room? Not so far. What about Harding? Can you reach him? No, I've tried. He must have turned his radio off. Malcolm was shaking his head. So we're the only ones that know about the animals on that ship. I'm trying to raise somebody, Ed said. I mean, Christ. We don't want those animals on the mainland. How long until we get back to base? From here? Another 16, 17 minutes, Ed Regis said. At night, the whole road was illuminated by big floodlights. It felt to Grant as if they were driving through bright green tunnels of leaves. Large raindrops spattered the windshield. Grant felt the Land Cruiser slow and then stop. Now what? Lex said, I don't want to stop. Why do we stop? And then suddenly, all the floodlights went out. The road was plunged into darkness. Lex said, hey! Probably just a power outage or something, Ed said. I'm sure the lights will be on in a minute. What the hell happened? Arnold staring at his monitors. What happened? Muldoon said. You lose power. Yeah, but only power of the perimeter. Everything in the building's working fine, but outside in the park, the power is gone. Lights, TV cameras, everything. His remote monitors have gone black. What about the 2 Land Cruisers? Stopped somewhere around the Tyrannosaurus paddock. Well, Muldoon said, call maintenance and get the power back on. Arnold picked up one of the phones and heard hissing. Nedry computers talking to each other. No phones. Damn Nedry. Nedry, where the hell is he? Dennis Nedry pushed open the door marked fertilization. With the perimeter power out and the security card locks were disarmed, every door in the building opened with a touch. The problems with the security system were high on Jurassic Park's bug list. Nedry wondered if anybody imagined if it wasn't a bug, that Nedry had programmed it that way. He had built a classic trap door. Few programmers of large computer systems could resist the temptation to leave themselves a secret entrance. Partly it was a common sense. If inept users locked up the system, then called you for help, you always had a way to get in and repair the mess. And partly it was kind of a signature. Kilroy was here. And partly it was insurance for the future. Nedry wasn't annoyed with this Jurassic Park project. Late in the schedule, InGen had demanded extensive notifications to the system and hadn't been willing to pay for them. arguing they should be included under the original contract. Lawsuits were threatened, letters were written to Nedry's other clients, implying that Nedry was unreliable. It was blackmail, and in the end, Nedry had been forced to eat his overages on Jurassic Park and to make changes that Hammond wanted. But later, when he was approached by Lewis Dodson at Bioson, Nedry was ready to listen, and able to say that he could indeed get past Jurassic Park security. He could get into any room, any system, anywhere in the park, because he had programmed it that way, just in case. He entered the fertilization room. The lab was deserted, as he had anticipated. All the staff were at dinner. Nedry unzipped his shoulder bag and removed the can of Gillette shaving cream. He unscrewed the base, and he saw the interior was divided into a series of cylinder slots. He pulled a pair of heavy insulated gloves and opened the walk-in freezer marked contents viable biological maintain -10 minimum. The freezer was the size of a small closet, with shelves from floor to ceiling. Most of the shelves contained reagents and liquids in plastic sacks. To one side he saw a smaller nitrogen cold box with a heavy ceramic door. He opened it, and a small rack of tubes slid out. In a cold white liquid nitrogen smoke. The embryos were arranged by species: Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, Hadrosaurus, Tyrannosaurus. Each embryo in thin glass container wrapped in a silver foil, stoppered with polyline. Nedry quickly took 2 of each, slipping them into the shaving can. Then he screwed the base of the can shut and twisted the top. There was a hiss of releasing gas inside, and the can frosted in his hands. Dodgson said there was enough coolant for 36 hours, more than enough time to get to San Jose. Nedry left the freezer and returned to the main lab. He dropped the can in the bag and zipped it shut. He went back into the hallway. The theft had taken less than 2 minutes. He could imagine the consternation upstairs in the control room as they began to realise what happened. All the security codes were scrambled, all the phone lines were jammed. Without his help, it would take hours to untangle this mess. But in just a few minutes, Nedry would be back in the control room, setting things right. And no one would suspect what he had done. Grinning, Nedry had walked down to the ground floor, nodded to the guard, and continued downstairs to the basement. Passing the neat lines of electric Land Cruisers, he went to the gasoline-powered Jeep parked along the wall. He climbed in, noticed some odd grey tubing on the passenger seat. Almost looked like a rocket launcher, he thought, as he turned the ignition key and started the Jeep. Nedry glanced at his watch. From here into the park, 3 minutes straight to the East Dock, 3 minutes from there back to the control room. Piece of cake. Damn it, Arnold said, punching the buttons on the console. It's all screwed up. Muldoon was standing at the windows, looking at the park. The lights had all gone out over the island, except in the immediate area of the main buildings. He saw a few staff personnel hurrying to get out of the rain, but no one seemed to realise anything was wrong. Muldoon looked over at the visitor lodge where the lights burned brightly. Uh-oh, Arnold said. We have real trouble. What's that? Muldoon said. He turned away from the window, and so he didn't see the Jeep drive out of the underground garage and head east along the maintenance road into the park. That idiot Nedry turned off the security systems, Arnold said. The whole building's opened up. None of the doors locked anymore. I'll notify the guards, Muldoon said. That's the least of it, Arnold said. When you turn off the security, you turn off all the peripheral fences as well. The fences? Muldoon said. The electric fences, they're off. All over the island. That's right, Arnold said. The animals can get out now. Arnold lit a cigarette. Probably nothing will happen, but you never know. Muldoon started towards the door. I better drive out and bring the people in, those 2 Land Cruisers, just in case. Muldoon quickly went downstairs to the garage. He wasn't really worried about the fences going down. More of the dinosaurs had been in the paddocks for 9 months or more. They'd brushed up against the fences more than once with notable results. Muldoon knew how quickly animals learn to avoid stock stimuli. You could train a laboratory pigeon with just 2 or 3 stimulation events. So it was unlikely the dinosaurs would now approach the fences. Muldoon was more concerned about what people in cars would do. He didn't want them getting out of the Land Cruisers, because once the power came back on, the cars would start moving again. Whether the people were inside or not, they might be left behind. Of course, in the rain, it was unlikely to leave the cars, but still, you never know. He reached into the garage and hurried towards the Jeep. It was lucky, he thought, that he had the foresight to put the launcher in there. He could just go straight out and be in that it was gone. What the hell? Muldoon stared at the empty parking space astonished. The Jeep was gone. What the hell was happening? 37 Raptors, 100% free. That's not true. 8 of them are locked up. So there's 29. That all of that whole 3 hours, okay, I would say 3.5 because I chatted for 15, was just the third. That was to page 200. We have to get to page, the next time we do it, 320, I think. No, 309. I don't think that's much better, to be honest. Look how much shorter. Hold on. Like, in the nicest way. That's number 3. That's number 4. How did the raptors get out in the first place to breed? I'm not spoiling any of this book for you because it looks like we're going to be doing a fucking 4th stream of it. I ain't spoiling shit. I ain't spoiling a thing. No. Get fucked. Yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna read the book. I'm never gonna read the book. Now you need answers. And I'll know if you've read ahead. I'll know. And I know you won't. You'll let Grandma down. And you wouldn't do that to Grandma. But yeah, 4 hours. I could go for another, but let's be real. I think I'm just gonna... I'll see how far we get on Thursday. Because the thing is, the last bit... The last bit is a chunk, but, like, that's a mix. You know, that's what would have been bits and all. To be fair, my reaction to the now being 37 rappers was funny. It is fucking... Oh, yeah, it is hilarious. The beauty of it is, I feel like this last bit would go kind of quick. Because if we look at what we were planning... You know, you look at number 1 and the last one, I know it's kind of hard. They're about the same size. I think it's a tiny bit bigger. That one only took me 3 hours. It's just a shame that that middle section, for one chapter, takes so long to read aloud. Because, yeah, the next bit, we have roughly 8 hours left. That's what I mean. So I feel like if I've got Thursday, and I think, where's my calendar? I think I'm just going to have to ditch Disney, even though... Oh, cool. Because I moved stuff, this did not charge the entire time. Fantastic. I was like, why is my phone, like, really cold? Didn't charge. Well, it's fine, I'm going to be up anyway, because I got to do Baldur's Gate shit. To see if I can get it to, you know, start to slowly see if I can get it to work. Let's look at the calendar. Is that when my watch stopped as well? No, my watch is still fine. Yeah, because the only stream I have of the week of Comic-Con is Disney. But I can turn that into this. Unless Baldur's Gate doesn't happen. If Baldur's Gate doesn't happen tomorrow, I will do a stream tomorrow of reading this and then finish it. So. Because, yeah. Well, there's also Disney on the 18th on the Saturday. So I've got Disney then to do a lot of the Star Path and stuff. It's not terrible. And you never know, I might magically have that Thursday off before Halloween. Alright, you're going back on charge. But, honestly, it gets more fun. And the thing is, the really good gory shit hasn't happened yet, but so much of it's hinting at it, and I fucking love that. Like there's just so much that's, like, already hinting or, like, foreshadowing, or at least that I know of, and it's kind of cool to see it back, especially with one of the scenes that ruined my entire life, and you're looking at the start of it, and you're like, I'm enjoying it more. It's a bit, like, other than, so yes, you get a lot of science terms, and if that is not a thing for people, you lose it. But we are halfway through this book, basically, and the next half is basically death, 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 death. And I love it. But also, it is one of those things of, yeah, like they start, some of the things in this book go, this is made like this. This is made like this. This is designed like this. And you're like, mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I wonder why they did that. And you're like, yeah, I wonder why. Who needs steel bars? Oh, what would be the reason? Oh. And one of my favourites is one of the lines about Malcolm. But, like, yeah, there is a lot more to come. And, obviously, if you haven't noted, I'll quickly grab the other book, actually, to do so. Obviously, Gennaro's not in the car. And they're at the T-Rex paddock. So you can take a guess what happens there. Steel bars are the cause. How does there more to it? So, the steel bars added onto the little Lawyer Man's with Ellie and Dr. Harding. So if you think about the movie, Lawyer Man was originally in the Jeeps with the T-Rex, but he's not. The steel bars being added to it always makes, because when I first read it, because obviously you never see the lodge in the movie, which we do get to see in Survival, but it always made me laugh when I first read it, because they were like, oh, they added steel. I was like, oh god, they're expecting something bad to happen, and then you read the rest of the book and you're like, okay. Yep. But also, if you haven't noticed, all the staff is still on the island. Like, that's the other big bit. The movie, they're like, yeah, get to the docks, go home, bye. And everyone's just scrambling to go places. And you're like, oh, everyone's here. Everyone is still on this island. This would make sense when you base survival off this. Because there's workers on the island. Fucking movies. This makes sense. And I cannot wait for Survival to fucking ever drop. 29 Raptors free. No, the 29 Raptors free. Those ones are fucked. Yeah, everyone's surviving easily. Not leaking, are you? You little bitch. Yes, I genuinely forgot, I think, because I've got a scene in mind that's coming up that makes me go, yeah, raptors. I forgot that the graphs, like, straight up say how many there are, whereas I knew how many there were, because I know what scenes are coming up. But, yeah. Yeah, if there are 8, yes, there are 8. Yes, there are 8 in that fence. This is so hard to fucking drink out of, man, and be suspicious with. It's just like, don't mind me. It's a lost world after this one. I've got it. Anyway, let me grab the book about Id. Let me just get shorter. How many raptors? I'm not gonna. Bitch. Oh, fuck off, Bill. I'm just gonna sit on my leg. Fuck it. Can't be asked to make the thing higher. I mean, even fucking look how fucked they were with just 3 of them. 3 of them in the movie. Arnold didn't make it. Welcome to my Nora knowledge. Still waiting for someone to buy me very nicely the visual one as well. That'd be very nice. Very, very nice. Very thank you. Put it down there. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that talk was about Id. Now, so I always remember. I've only ever opened this once because I've only ever read it once. Look, it's my favourite. Wait, I can do big cam. 1, look at this poster. Look at this beautiful poster. Wait, I have this. Wait, do I have this? I do have it. I have it in bigger. I know I do. Yes! Oh, Jesus. I feel there's a stream we moved on too quick. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, look at the beauty that is this poster. Right? Look at this. Look at how stunning that is as a poster, right? Never used for the movie, which I think is a crime. I love this, especially for like all the little fuck me. The people at the top, the raptor in the eye, the DNA coming down to the sketching, all the different little things. I fucking love it. It's 10 out of 10. It's beautiful. Anyway, but yeah, they're so beautiful, and I mean, you get some I haven't got the visual thing, but you get some beautiful fucking things for like what you get. But this is obviously based. I haven't got this is the script book for the movie. You get some beautiful drawings, blah blah blah. You get this one. Oh, funny. Look at that. Look at the baby. Ooh, that's kind of terrifying. I want that as a tattoo. Yeah, you go. Grant. One of the looks for Grant, you know. If you wanted to have a nice little picture. One of the looks. No, not as fine as Sam Neill, I guess. Originally, I'm pretty sure. This was one of the looks that they could go for Raleigh. Even, this was one of the looks. I don't care about one of the looks for fucking Hammond. Ian's one was worse. Ian's is worse. I don't like it. Look at this. No. Look at this fine motherfucker. And then this. Nah, sorry. Not allowed. Not allowed. Yeah, not the one. Not compared to that fine fucker. I think what was their thing was tall man, thinning and 30. Like, while Malcolm was described in the novel as a tall, thin, balding man of 35, the casting of Jeff Goldblum, who boasted a thick, raven-coloured mane, spun the look of the character in a direction. One thing remained consistent, dressed entirely in black. They literally went now, fuck that. Have a bitch. I'm not fucking here. I know it! Fuck off with Mr. DNA. He's not in anything. He's not allowed to be. They banned him. They were like, nah, banned. Just got dinosaur sounds in the background. I think it's kind of nice. Give me Ed Regis. Ed, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah. Obviously, so come to certain things, and I'll just put it this way of why he was cut. Where is it? Yeah, so they basically cut Ed because Malcolm had more screen time. So every plan they have for what's coming up, I won't read fully into detail because it gives away some of the differences in the scenes. Everything that came up ended up becoming Malcolm. So even though they could have had Ed, thanks, they had him for, I think it says, pretty much the first couple of drafts of the entire movie. They had Ed, and then they cut him because Malcolm had so much time. And then, yeah, they sort of had certain scenes where Grant was going to take certain places, and they were like, nah, you can't have Grant get hurt in this movie. You kill the lawyer. But yeah, I always remembered there was a reason, Ed gets cut because Malcolm takes over. But obviously the script book is also absolutely wonderful. Oh, look at that. Beauty. This scene, everything. I want the visual. Removing Edward. That's what I mean. The thing is, they replace a lot of things with Ian. Obviously with Gennaro. Like, Gennaro obviously takes a good lot of the brunt of it. So Ed is in favor, but obviously they swapped as well, Lex and thing, and Ed was mainly there to be sweet to Lex. But yeah. The script book was fantastic. They get it for like £5 from my sister. But these have got differences in. These has little differences in like wording and scripts, blah blah blah, like you do with a script. But that one is good. I want the visual. There's the visualization one. I want that at some point. It's on my wish list as a high priority, hoping Eliza will see it and just fucking buy it for me. I'm really trying. Really fucking trying. It is on sale. Oh, by how much? Don't say this to me, I'm poor. Poor, Laura. So it has gone on sale a few times while it's been on my list. It's 33 currently. Yeah. One day I'll get it for cheap.